The story begins with the birth of a little boy with golden hair hanging on his mother's umbilical cord. This little boy wonders where he is and if he is in heaven. When he opened his bright blue eyes, he saw the world's light for the first time and noticed that it felt pretty warm. He quickly closed his eyes again and enjoyed the warmth surrounding him. His mother held him in her arms, cuddling with her newborn son, and named him El. She expressed her love for him as he continued sleeping in her arms, hoping he felt safe and secure. However, El's thoughts revolved around where he might be. A few years passed, and the story took a little leap. It was night, and the loving mother had just come home calling out to her son, but using a diminutive form of his name, Ellie. The house had a blue roof and looked neither too big nor too small, giving an overall cozy impression. The light inside the house shone through the window, illuminating the surroundings. Elle's mother entered the room, greeting her son with a wave and asking Ellie if he had been good and looked after the house while she was away. Elle sits on the chair, closes his eyes, and responds, "Mother." "It's not Ellie." Then he turns, saying, "It's Elle." If she keeps calling him Ellie, he will not talk to her. His behavior shocked his mother. Her eyes filled with tears, and she knelt dejectedly and told him she called him that because she found Ellie cute. "This is shocking." Her son Ellie yelled at her. Elle approached his mother, touching her shoulder and trying to comfort her, but his mother had to hold back tears. Elle told her not to cry. She could call him Ellie. His mother was overjoyed and hugged him, asking if she trusted him. Ellie, her kind son, is so cute. He knows mother loves him. Her adorable son, Elle, silently hugs his mother. After the hug, he went to his room, opened the door, and stood before the large bookshelf. He realized he relaxed too much whenever he spent time with his mother. He finds this adaptability frightening and gazes thoughtfully into the distance. Elle wonders if he has already lived there for 7 years. He doesn't know why, but he still possesses the memories of his previous life and is reborn in his past life. He lost his parents at a young age. He lived a busier life than his peers to repay the debt they left behind. He questions himself. Will he be able to live happily after he repays everything? However, as a student, there weren't many ways he could earn money to survive. He thinks he did all the part-time jobs available. One of those was being a pro gamer. He got the prize of 20 million, and the host gave her the prize money she announced as expected of player Lee Junhyuk. This is incredible. Moreover, he was reluctant to reveal his private life, so he used an alias to win the prize and could easily earn money. So this was the best way to earn money. But after some days, it was a beautiful day back then. The sun shone, the sky was clear of clouds, and the school building was visible. Elle's former self sat at his desk in the classroom looking into a book. His former name was Kim Junseong, and he was 19 years old. He wore a headband, had slightly longer darker hair, and was in a school uniform. He was jotting down some notes in his book. A girl appeared and knelt before him, putting her arms on his desk. Junseong gets nervous, and a bead of sweat appears on his face. The girl glanced at his notes and impressively told Junseong he was terrific. Then, she started chattering about the class material. Right now, it is hard, but as expected, the rank 1 is different. Come to think of it, he changed his headband. After this, she gets up and, putting her hands on the desk, moves forward and impressively asks, "It's pretty. Where did he buy it? Can she try it?" Junseong replies no. She starts trembling, and her eyes fill with tears. Sees this, Junseong wonders shit. Then he jumps up in surprise and waves his hand and raises his voice. Wait, that's not what he meant, while the girl starts crying. Meanwhile, another girl was walking behind him, slightly bewildered by the situation. Junseong explained that he had a reason for not giving her the headband and looked somewhat sad. The girl behind him took off his headband, surprising him because he didn't expect someone to remove his headband without asking. Both girls looked at Junseong and told him he looked better now. Suddenly, their eyes sparkled, and they both simultaneously said wait, then surprisingly asked Junseong if he looked like Lee Junhyuk. Junseong gets speechless and tries to arrange his hair. The girl turns, asking if he is doing right, and the other classmates standing there are surprised, too. One of the girls with maroon hair responds, "Of course not. This goody two-shoe is pro gamer Junhyuk Nim." Another boy stands behind the girl and adds that he does a little, while the girl with golden hair wonders goody two-shoes. Junseong was nervous, and beads of tears appeared on his face. However, the maroon-haired girl mentions she has the same glasses as Junhyuk Nim. Can he try them on? Junseong wonders if he is screwed. Junseong takes the glasses from the box, and the girl tells her he can't fool the eyes of a real fan. Junseong wears the glasses, thinking everyone is doing as they please. The maroon-haired girl asks what the other classmates are surprised by, too. The boys check Junhyuk's picture from their phones and surprisingly say he doesn't just look like him. The maroon-haired girl adds that he is Lee Junhyuk. All the students were surprised, and the maroon-haired girl said to think that the study bug Kim Junseong was Lee Junhyuk. Junseong takes a deep breath, considering how. Then he removes his glasses, wears his headband, takes his bag, and turns to leave while all his classmates surround him. He steps ahead to go. The fangirl with other classmates comes after him, saying Junseong she saw his game. A boy thumbs up to him, saying to play a match with him. Another boy asks him to, while Junseong ignores them and silently leaves the classroom. After this, Junseong, exhausted, went to the school rooftop, seeking some peace from the classmates who had gotten on his nerves since they discovered his true identity. Therefore, he sat there and pondered how it had come to this. He wanted to keep a low profile, so he hid everything and became a pro gamer. It was to save up money quickly. Attention like this is uncomfortable. Suddenly, the shoes appeared before him, and his classmate, the yellow-haired girl, stood before him apologizing and saying that because of her, she didn't know things would become this big. Junseong closed his eyes and responded, "It's okay if they are specific, Miji. It's not her fault." Miji, thinking for a while, asks him, and with her apology, she wants a romantic date with him. Junseong wonders. He finally thought he could have a romantic ending to his life, but his end was futile. He struggled so much to live happily, but who would have thought he would die like this? One thing came to his mind at that moment. He wanted to be reborn rich and live happily in his next life. Moreover, he questioned whether his desperate plea got through shortly after learning that he had been reborn in another world. At the age of 4, from the books he read in the library, he knew that the world followed a similar feudal system to the Middle Ages with ranks and classes. L's mother from the terrace window calls him, asking him to stop reading and let's eat. L was lost in thoughts and wonders, a mage who used magic, a knight who used aura, and even a priest who used divine power. There were so many fascinating things. However, the best thing was that he had a mother. L's mother was calling the diminutive form of his name, Ellie. While he pondered, his mother was a mage who mastered 3rd class at a young age. His mother, who had lost her husband early, treasured him. To fulfill her expectations, he trained hard because the magic formulas of this world were very similar to math. At the age of 7, he was quickly able to master 2nd class. Although the amount of his mana limits him, reaching 3rd class in 3 years will be fine. After this, L watches his mother through the window, where she takes the bucket of leaves from a man and thinks she is there. Today is the one day of the month when mother goes to the big village to sell rice-dough tea leaves. After some time, his mother knocked on his room door, asking Ellie if mother would get going if he was still sleeping. Then she entered the room, informing Ellie that mother was coming in. Elle had already stood there wearing a suit and bag and told mother he wanted to go with her. She sees him blush. Her eyes sparkle in surprise, and she thinks it's cute. Then, she creates the mental image of a monster and touches her face. She worriedly shakes her head, saying no, never. Then she asks what would happen if they saw a scary monster on the way. It might want to eat him up. Elle wondered why mother walked those dangerous roads by herself. He hasn't told mother yet, but he can use magic, so it's okay. He needs to study quickly and master the next class. He can be treated as a viscount in the kingdom when he becomes 5th class. When he becomes 7th class, he is a powerful mage and can live comfortably. He will become the best and richest mage on the continent and live a happy life with his mother. But first, he grabs his mother's dress and lovingly looks toward her, requesting that it's okay because he will protect her mother. She sees this. His mother blushes, thinking it's cute, and feels an arrow cross her heart. She grabs her head and responds, "Okay, let's go together." But in return, listening to her well, Elle slightly laughs, saying okay. His mother asks him never to do anything dangerous. Then she turns and steps toward the door and points her thumb at him, saying that if a scary monster appears, his mother will protect him. Just trust her. Elle blushed and smiled, responding that he would trust her mother. After some time, both Elle and his mother pass through the forest. Side while on the way, his mother worriedly asks him if Ellie is not tired. It's been hours since they left. Elle gets surprised, walks beside his mother, and responds that he is okay. He worked out hard. His mother smiles, saying right. He didn't only look at mages, so he worked out hard. Elle slightly laughs, saying that grand mages of the future need a healthy body and mind, so he must work out hard from a young age. His mother surprisingly wonders if it's the same as what the Mage Academy announced about improving physically. Then she smiles, saying Ellie, he is brilliant. He might become a grand mage. Elle gave her mother a flower and asked her mother if he saw this in a book. She could use this as a medical herb, right? She smiled, responding, yes, as expected, he is smart. Then she stepped ahead, asking Ellie let's rest there and go. Elle happily complimented when he saw the handmade table and chair before him. His mother told him she made this resting spot while she went back and forth. Elle sits there compliments. It's so cool. His mother, stepping ahead, asks if he likes it, and he responds yes. Suddenly, Elle feels that there is something behind them. He quickly gets up and, pointing to that side, raises his voice to mother. There was something there. A group of orcs came toward them, saying human smell looks tasty. Let's eat them. Elle's mother was surprised to see the orcs. She quickly raised her arm and stood before her son to protect him, thinking of orcs and 3 of them. This was Ellie's first time seeing a monster, but if he got traumatized from it. While the orcs stood before them, one of them pointed to them, saying human women and children are tasty. He was drooling. However, one of the orcs starts swinging his weapon, thinking of the first meal in a while. Elle's mother wonders if she doesn't get rid of them quickly. Ellie will. As she was wondering, Elle, without worrying, asked mother if he was an orc. They were green pigs. Hearing this, the orcs get surprised, and Elle's mother turns, surprisingly, calling his name and wondering whether to call an orc a green pig. He is very calm. Then orcs, raising their weapon angrily, run toward them to attack, shouting that they are not pigs. Elle's mother closes her eyes and starts creating the spell, thinking let's focus. A strong gust of wind starts blowing around due to the spell, and she tries to console Elle, saying right, Ellie, there is no need to be afraid. She promised him that. She creates the fireball with her magic and throws it toward the orcs, saying they won't be able to touch him. Elle's mouth opens in surprise when he sees the fireball and thinks it's incredible. This is third-class magic. The fireball falls on the orcs, and they burn in that fire. Elle's mother laughs, calling the orcs a green pig. The burnt orcs lying on the ground say fire magic is scary. Let's run. They quickly get up and run away from there, crying. Elle impressively looks toward his mother and compliments her as an excellent mother. Her mother blushes and smiles, then puts her ear close to him and asks what she didn't hear. Elle happily raises his voice. She is so cool, like a great mage. His mother happily touched her face and said mother was so happy that he complimented her. Elle stands behind, grinning. After some time, the open food bag was lying on the table, and Elle's mother asked him if Ellie wasn't scared of the orcs. He responded that the green pigs looked funny. He didn't know why she said they were scary. His mother points, telling him the orcs ran away quickly because they are scared of fire. But there are much scarier monsters out there, so he has to be careful. Elle, eating the sandwich, attentively listening to his mother. His mother explained that trolls have good regenerative abilities and are hard to fight. Ogres are as giant and robust as castle walls. Elle asks if she can defeat monsters like that, too. She replies that troll blood is very popular as a potion ingredient because of its regenerative power, and ogre's leather is as expensive as it is challenging to kill. Elle, in shock, crushes the sandwich. His mother tells him that they are not monsters. He can see there, but he must always be careful. Elle happily thinks that will be a good amount of money. Then he smiles, responding okay. His mother lovingly touching his nose and saying, mother will protect him, so he doesn't need to worry. Their destination is Banzark, which will take about 3 more days. After this, she gets up, asking if he can keep upright. He happily replies that he is strong, so there is no need to worry. His mother lovingly compliments him, saying he is so cool, Ellie. However, their journey toward Banzark continued. They spent the night in the forest, lit wooden fires, and enjoyed their time. The following day, they again head toward their destination. Elle's mother helps him to pass the stream. They walk through the forest to reach the mountain. Elle stands on the hill, looking toward the village from far away, and thinks they are finally there. This is where he will take his first steps as a wealthy person. Elle opened his arms and happily looked toward the village. He complimented it as fabulous. His mother stood behind him, smiling. After some time, they stood in the street side of Banzark village. The village was looking so peaceful. Elle happily thought it finally felt like he was in another world. Elle was impressed by the village. He impressively looked toward the fall. His mother held his hand and took him from there, telling Ellie he needed to look forward when walking. The place they are going to is this way. After this, they arrive at the Dibble store. Dibble store owner Dibble welcomed them, saying he was waiting for her. Miss Sylphia Elle's mother responded, it's been a while, Mr. Dibble. Elle stood beside his mother and looked toward Dibble. He thought he was the store owner. Dibble asked about Elle from Sylphia, and Sylphia grabbed Elle from behind her to make him stand before her, saying her reliable company. He is her son, brilliant and cute, and he nags a lot. Elle asks, "Wait, mother?" She makes him stand before her and, touching his shoulder, asks him to say hello. Dibble knelt before Elle and looked toward him, complimenting her as a brilliant son. Nice to meet him. He is Dibble. As Dibble looks toward Elle's eyes, he gets surprised, thinking his eye color differs from his peers. It's like he is looking at him. It feels like he is evaluating him as Dibble is shocked, and beads of sweat appear on his face. Sylphia asks Mr. Dibble to snap out of his thoughts, starts setting his glasses, and says he is sorry he was rude. She has a fantastic son. Elle stood before him and surprisingly looked toward him. Sylphia stood beside them, taking off the bag from her shoulder. Then she opened the leaves bag before Dibble told him this was the harvest of the Risto tea leaves. He compliments the condition of the Risto leaves this time, which is excellent. If it's good, he can give her 5 more gold than last time. People can't sell good products like this because none aren't available. She smiles, asking she doesn't know much about that, but thanks him. Dibble asks her what she is saying. Thanks to her, his store is becoming more profitable by the day. They are both benefiting from this, so please don't worry. Elle picks the book from the bookshelf, and after listening to Dibble's words, he smiles, thinking he knows how to judge products, and that how he talks to people is good, too. This place would be good if he were involved with a store. After the conversation, Sylphia goes to the exit door, saying she will see him next time. She asks Elle to let go. Elle put the book back on the bookshelf and responded, "Coming, mother." After some time, Dibble sat leaning back on the chair and remembering Elle's eyes. He thought those eyes meant he would become a great person. On the other side, Elle and Sylphia are passing through the street. Elle asks where they are going, showing him the bag and smiling, responding that they will go to the Mage Tower. She is going there to sell mana stones with runes written on them. Mana stones are stones that allow anyone to use magic easily. Although it's a single-use item, production is complex and a high-value deal. With his improved magic techniques, Elle thinks he can make that process more straightforward. But the materials are expensive, so he doesn't dare to try. Elle snaps out of his thoughts when his mother tells him magic materials and grimoires are sold at the Mage's Tower. He asks her if he can get grimoires at the village. At the Mage Tower, he can get 9th class grimoires, which aren't attainable in the town. There are 10th class grimoires, but the highest ranking mage on the continent is a 9th class master. Throughout history, it has been said that no one has reached the 10th class. Elle gets stunned, thinking that there is a 10th class. He is going to grow up quickly and live happily with his mother. But his plan's going to be twisted. Elle asks his mother let's buy 8th and 9th class grimoires. His mother lovingly laughs, responding her cute Ellie is always hard-working. After this, in the Banzark Mage's Tower, a wealthy man happily welcomes Sylphia. Sylphia bowed her head before him, responding, "It has been a while." Vice Master Elle stands beside him and wonders who this is. The Vice Master tells her he is waiting and wondering when she will come. Then he checks the mana stone and compliments that it is perfect. Her skills are getting better, Miss Sylphia. Sylphia thanks him. The Vice Master notices Elle there and asks her who this child is. Then he grabs his face and squeezes, complimenting that he looks just like Sylphia and is very handsome. Elle angrily thinks don't touch him. The Vice Master turns, saying he will introduce his son to her. Sylphia smiles with beads of sweat on her face. Elle angrily turns his face. The Vice Master calls his son Jedrick. His son Jedrick, reading the book, stands before the bookshelf angrily and turns his face but doesn't respond. The Vice Master adds, telling Sylphia Jedrick that he is 12 but has already reached first class. Sylphia answered that it was terrific. Being a first-class master at that age, the Vice Master proudly asked Jedrick to give them an energy ball demonstration. Jedrick angrily returns the book and hardly creates the energy bolt spell circle. Sylphia sees his magic skills impressively complement them, and it's so cool that she is looking forward to what he will become. The Vice Master grabs Sylphia's hands and lustfully looks toward her, saying that if she gives herself to him, their son will be able to be accomplished like Jedrick. Sylphia is surprised the sweat beads appear on her face. She responds no. The Vice Master slightly laughs, saying don't be so severe. It's a joke, just a joke. Elle stands behind, watching this, and gets furious. His body starts trembling in anger, and he thinks seriously. He keeps hitting his mother. He wasn't planning on showing his skills until he was 10, but he can't hold back any longer. Finally, Elle speaks. He can do an energy bolt, too. The Vice Master surprisingly asks what Jedrick stops his energy bolt magic, and surprisingly looks toward L. Sylphier came to L, knelt before him, and asked Ellie what he meant by her kindness. Ellie doesn't lie. Why is he saying those things? A strong gust of magic wind started blowing all around the room. L stretched out his hand and cast the same energy bolt spell. His eyes started shining like a blue energy bolt. Unlike Cedric, L wasn't as exhausted, and his energy bolt absorbed more and more mana from outside the tower, significantly enhancing his spell and making it more prominent in control. L halted it, astonished the Vice Master, and scared Jedrick. Sylphier, shocked, sits on the floor. She doesn't believe in her eyes what she has seen just now. She hugs her son lovingly, asking Ellie if her son is the best. When was he able to do this? He is so cool. Suddenly, the two of them heard something and got silent momentarily. An older man slammed the door and entered loudly, asking who was the person who had just done a magic demonstration. The Vice Master addresses the older man. Master L hugs his mother, looks toward the older man, and thinks that this older man is the master. He can feel an incredible amount of mana. Is this the power of a 7th class mage? The older man stares at L and then asks if he is a child. What a peculiar idiot. He possesses eyes that aren't befitting of his age. Sylphier bends her head before the master while L silently stands before him and asks what that means. The master replies that a wise man can know a person's inner self just by looking at one's eyes. L wonder what a person's inner self means. The master asks Sylphier if she is the one who brought him there. She nods, responding, "Yes, master." The master asks her if he will borrow her son for a while. After some time, both the master and L sit before each other in the hall. The master tells him he will get straight to the point. That was 1st class magic, but his mana response is world class, and his casting time is extremely short. How did he do it? A 7th class master is comparable to a sword master, but in battle, magic is limited, so mages helplessly die at the hands of fast knights. Can he tell him his method? L silently sits there, looks toward the older master, and then smiles, asking if he thinks he is an idiot. Perhaps he is trying to take a vast hidden technique like this in exchange for nothing. The older man is surprised by his response, clearing his throat. He says he is a cheeky kid and then asks him for a suitable price. L laughs, asking, "And that is?" The older master offers him he will give him 10,000 gold, and with that, even his descendants will have enough to eat and play. L thinks he doesn't need such much money right now. He will try to get help with this and that. L laughs, responding no. An 8th class and 9th class magic book and a mana stone will do. The master loudly asks if a mana stone will suffice. L replies yes, that's what he needs the most right now. The master thinks for a while and raises his brows, saying he doesn't know what he is planning but must have a reason. He will prepare 100 mana stones and some magic books for him. L shakes hands with the master, saying a deal has been formed thanks to his tower master's grandpa. The older master, grabbing L's hand, nodded and considered him a sly fox. Then, after some time, they both stood in the spell circle, the shining magic wind blowing around them. The older master stretched out his arms and said, "But why is it so hard to deal with a kid who is only 7 years old? It feels like he is dealing with a grand mage in front of him." L, looking toward him, smiles. Then, pointing his finger, he asks him to keep what happened there a secret. After he returned home, his mother asked him about this and that. Sylphier knelt before him and, putting a hand on his shoulder, asked Ellie how he learned magic to use magic in that short time. L replies with the magic books at home, mana response training, and a formula he made himself. In his previous life, he would use his sleeping time to study after work. From what he learned, he wanted to go to a good college and live a better life. He enjoyed math the most because it was something he couldn't do carelessly, and because getting satisfaction from solving complex math problems was fun. Although magic formulas are way more complicated than math formulas, thanks to the memories from his previous life, he could reduce his casting time, but he couldn't teach his mother math from Earth, so he showed her a modified basic magic formula. Sylphier cast the fireball spell, and she was amazed at how quickly the spell casting time could be reduced without losing strength. She simultaneously hugged him, complimenting that he was a genius. Teach his mother some more so she would become an excellent magician. L, in response, remains silent, and a bead of sweat appears on his face. Just like that, 2 years passed. Sylphier became a class master, and they left Lunk village and moved near Banzark Mage's tower. Also, as they headed towards the Mage's tower like usual, they had an unexpected encounter. A slaved merchant group captured 2 girls, handcuffed them, and tied their necks with iron chains. Other members stood around to monitor whether someone was watching them. One of them was holding the chain attached to the girl's neck and asked too, "Today, what a big catch." He pulled the chain, but the girl didn't move. He slapped her and shouted, "Hurry and follow him." The girl thuds away, and the other girl gets scared too. Meanwhile, someone throws a stone that hits the robe man's head. The person who threw the stone was L, who stood behind angrily, clenching his fist and raising his voice. "What are they doing? Stop it right now." Sylphia was along with L, and they discovered two girls captured by a slave merchant group. One of the men from the group raised his voice, asking L why he didn't interfere with others' work. However, L's mother isn't someone to pass by after seeing that both the girls wore simple brown garments and the red-haired girl looked desperate as she touched the white-haired girl lying on the ground and anxiously checked her condition, tears in her eyes. L's mother gently touched his shoulder, asking Ellie to move briefly. Then she created the fireball spell, raising her voice. Words don't work against these kinds of idiots. Looking toward his mother, L smiled, and to support his mother, he fired his energy bolt toward those men. Sylphia also fired her fireball spell, driving the men in black robes away. After this, Sylphia helps those girls and removes the iron chain from their necks, asking if they are okay. Then she angrily says that she thinks they would do such a bad thing. Both the girls sit there on the ground. L extends his hand toward them, saying it's okay now. Surprisingly, both girls look toward his hand, then start crying and put their hands on L's hand. L and his mother wanted to find each of their families, but after hearing that they had no place to return to, Sylphia told them that they could stay with them. After some days, at L's home, as it was morning time and L was sleeping, his room door opened, and a white-haired girl wearing sophisticated clothes entered the room, asking L to please wake up. Then she smiled and extended her hand on her hands. A golden spell circle created on which a golden pigeon formed and flew up. As the pigeon flies, its golden wings fall. The pigeon, carried with its golden spell, lights fly all around L's bed. L was still sleeping, and his golden hair had grown quite long. After some time, he wakes up and sits on the bed. He looks toward the white-haired girl and calls her name, Serena. She is there. Then, he impressively complimented her. Her magic improved during that short span, and that wind magic just now was incredible. L asks her if she works all day and learns magic from him. Isn't she tired? Serena stands beside the bed and replies that it was hard at first, but it's not tiring after realizing the fun of learning magic. After this, she goes to the door and leaves the room, saying then come down slowly. He replies okay. Since then, time has passed, and he is now 12 years old. L came out of his room. Serena, while humming, was going to the kitchen carrying the utensils. L looks around the home, asking Serena if Kaina is out again today. She replies yes, she has been going out every day lately. As it was morning time and the sunlight was coming into the home, someone opened the door from outside and entered. And this was nobody else but the red-haired girl holding the sword. She stood at the door and asked L if he had slept well. L smiled, asking good morning, Kaina, sword training today as well. She is incredible. Looking at her sword, Kaina replies yes. The more she swings her sword, the more her strength overflows. It's fun. She quickly moves to swing her sword, asking if it's okay with him. Can she show him the progress she has made through her training? L extended his hand, and with a bead of sweat on his face, he responded, show him outside next time. Kaina is the same age as L. Serena, who is 2 years older than him from a young age. They were isolated from the outside world, so he thought they would have a hard time. However, they are adjusting to their current life well. L teaches both. Serena has a talent for magic and has already reached first class. Kaina has extraordinary athleticism and is being trained in swordplay. It's a relief that both are following along well. L looked toward them and thought this is all smiles. Meanwhile, Sylphia gets there and wishes them good morning, L. The three of them turn and look toward Sylphia. Sylphia passes by L, humming, sees L, and asks if something good must have happened. Sylphia turns and smiles, asking if she made it too obvious. Then she shows the victory sign and happily tells him she mastered the 5th class yesterday. L, surprisingly, says congratulations to Mother, Serena, and Kaina clap for her, congratulating her on her victory. Sylphia, touching her face, responds thanks them. This is all thanks to Ellie. L, touching his chin, says the three ladies surprisingly look toward him to celebrate. L turns and smiles. After some time, in the Banzark Mage's tower, the old master surprisingly asks, he has grown a lot. He hasn't shown his face once until now. He is an unsympathetic idiot. L, holding the bag, stood before the master and responded. That's why he came to meet him, their tower master grandpa. He heard he beat a sword master. It seemed he was becoming stronger and stronger. Sylphir, Serena, and Kaina were coming out of the portal behind L. The master turned, saying, "Well, thanks to that magic formula." He then pointed toward the chair and asked him to sit. L sat on the chair, and Sylphir stood beside, touching the chair back, and asked, "L, wait, why did they come to the magic tower? Is there a reason?" The master sits before folding his hand and says he is also curious why he came to find him. L replied that he wanted to show him his invention. L opened the bag before the master, and red magic stones were in it. The master checked the rocks and surprisingly asked if this was the hardest thing to get on the continent, a magic stone, so the inventor was him. Moreover, the master touches the magic stone, saying a magic stone holds the mana close to that of a high-grade mana stone. But unlike a mana stone, which cannot be used for a few years after its use, it can charge in 3 days and be used 10 times. It may be due to this, but people sent from each continent's mage towers loitering near their houses. Hearing this, Sylphir surprisingly asks if it is true. Ellie sighs and replies yes. Thankfully, there hasn't been much movement. However, he thought Tower Master Grandpa might be interested as well. The master was stunned, and his eyes opened in surprise. He relaxed and asked if he was still a child who seemed old. So what did he want from him? L replies that he has 4 things to request in exchange for handing over the production and selling rights for magic stones to this magic tower. Please make it so their family can receive protection. If a mage tower recognized by the continent manages, its other places will give up quickly and be safe, too. The master thoughtfully responds that's right. L asks him to please get sword skill books and magic books. They need more books because both of them are too excellent. Serena and Kaina stood aside and were surprised, and master asked him if it was books. He had plenty, so take whatever was useful. What else? L replied show them a good inn. Hearing the master is surprised, L says his mother became a 5th-class master, so he wants to congratulate her. He would like a luxurious vacation with his family without being accompanied. Sylphir gets emotional and has tears in her eyes. She emotionally calls Ellie and then hugs him from behind, saying such a kind child thanks him. Sylphir, while crying, hugged Serena, and Kaina L laughed, thinking that no matter what happens now, he will protect this piece. The master asks him what the 4th request is. L's eyes start glowing, and he looks into the master's eyes and replies that he wants to get a golem production book. The master is stunned and asks golems why he needs them. Doesn't he know he can't make them even with a blueprint? L smiles, responding that he is interested and thinks he needs golems to realize his end goal. However, 4 years later, 2 male figures hid beside the bushes outside L's home on a moonlit night. One of them said they found it. This is the home of the magic stone inventor. Surprisingly, the other one asks why there are no magic traps. The first one responds that they trust the Banzark Mage's tower and have let their guard down. He thought it would be hard because they said to bring him without injury, but this would be easy. The second one asks what if he resists, and then one with red hair pulls his sword from sheath, saying they will kill them like assassins. Meanwhile, L folded his arms and stood his back to them, appearing before them, saying it was a good idea. They were amazed and scared, asking if he was L with no expression. 3 golems also get there from behind and stand behind those 2 males. Both fearfully turn their eyes and become speechless. One red-haired jumps up, swinging his sword to attack golems. But as he swings his sword to attack, the golem's eyes shine, and his sword crumbles into pieces. He sees the red-haired man and gets shocked, and the other man also gets speechless. The red-haired man knelt before the golems, asking how can this be this? The golem's eyes side armo started shining. One golem carried those 2 men on his shoulder and took them from there. L stood behind, complimented good work. Then he turned his face, thinking of incomplete golems. They are pretty handy and robust. Even since he received the golem production book from the tower, he secluded himself in the workshop and went all in on golem production. Thanks to this, his guard golems can effectively pull off their duties, but they are still far from his goal. The blood was spilled on the ground before L stretched out his arm. A shining aura emerged there, and a spell circle appeared behind his feet that made him move up, and the blood there started moving up, and the ground started cleaning. After clearing the blood from the ground, L dusted his hand and stepped ahead, saying this should be good enough. Mother and the others can't see this. The following day, Serena in the kitchen was frying the eggs. She said good morning to L, and he stood beside the table and responded, Serena, thanks for making breakfast. She smiled, saying no problem, cooking is fun. Meanwhile, Kaina gets there, saying hello to them. They turn to look. Elle also says hello to her, then asks if she came back from training today as well. She clenches her sword to swing it, replaying yes, please, and looks at her progress there. Elle, with beads of sweat on his face, smiles and requests later. Then he turns, thinking what a relief they are both the same as usual. Elle asks where their mother is. In response, Serena remains silent. On the other side, in the ground, Sylphia was casting the fireball magic. She created a huge fireball and lifted it, as it was difficult for her to control it. Her face was sweating, and she tried to control it with all her might, thinking the fireball would start ending within some minutes if she didn't prevent it more. Sylphia, exhausted, lay on the ground. Meanwhile, Elle gets up and calls his mother. She is surprised by his presence there. She sat on the ground, and Elle says her Serena made breakfast. Let's eat. Serena and Kaina were along with him. Sylphia sits her back to Elle and says sorry, just a bit more. Elle also kneels behind her, saying she should eat well and not work too hard. She is incredible, as is Sylphia's turn, saying that's not true if she doesn't become a 6th class master soon. Elle adds she doesn't have to work that hard. Elle shouts no if she doesn't work harder. Elle sees her behavior, gets stunned, calls her mother, and wonders what is happening. Mother isn't acting normal. Did something happen? This is a method he learned to increase his focus. He wanted to hide it if he could, but if it could help his mother. After thinking this, Elle asks that he will teach her hypogastric breathing. The three ladies surprisingly ask what. Elle tells them hypogastric breathing is a method to focus their consciousness to a pressure point a few centimeters below their belly button and breathe in through their nose. Then release all the air in their body through their mouth. If they learn this, they can gather their energy to one point and increase their power. The three women start doing the same as Elle tells them. They close their eyes, touch their belly buttons, focus their consciousness, and release all their air. Serena gets tired and puts a hand on her chest, touching her forehead, and says she can't breathe. Elle raises his voice. Don't rush it. Do it slowly. Breathe in well. Kaina also gets tired. She heads down and starts trembling and putting her hand on her stomach, saying her stomach muscles will cramp. Elle raised his voice telling her she used too much strength. Both Serena and Kaina tremble and sit on the ground, and Elle stands beside them, scratching his face and saying he doesn't usually focus on his breathing, but focusing on the method is challenging. Putting her hand on her stomach, Kaina hardly spoke about the mystery of the human body on the other side. Sylphia, wholly focused, stood behind a dark aura surrounding her body. Elle was surprised. Serena and Kaina turned and surprisingly said incredible focus. Elle thinks mana is gathering near mother. She is sensing the mana and increasing the response. Sylphia, closing her body, thinks she felt it. Mana is slowly permeating through her body, and her magic is growing. She has never felt this sensation. To think he learned this on his own without assistance from anyone. Ellie is a genius. She remembers the mansion and thinks because of that, she needs to become stronger for Ellie to create a better environment for Elle to return to that place. After this, she opened her eyes, a spell circle was created around her, and the magic solid wind blew around her. She thought the mana was slowly gathering and flowing into her body. This is incredible strength. Unlike before, all the energy is collected, and her strength is amplified. She stretched out her hand and started casting the fireball. A huge fireball was created, and she lifted it with one hand. Suddenly, that fireball turned into a firehouse, and Elle and the two girls were amazed. After this, she absorbed that fire horse in her hand, then smiled and stepped toward them. Elle congratulated her and appreciated that she did it. Serena clapped for her, saying she could feel stronger mana from her mother. It's incredible. Sylphia gets emotional, wipes her tears, and responds that she can become a 6th class master thanks to them. Thanks to all of them, she will work hard. Elle smiles, thinking how relieved she is to return to a smiling face. Will he be able to find a clue to go to the next level like a mother? For his real goal of reviving a night golem, he looks toward Serena, smiles, and talks to his mother. Now, his head is filled with thoughts of reaching his own goal, and he doesn't recognize the change in his mother and ignores it. Then he looks toward Kaina and thinks if he had paid attention and communicated. Then Sylphia emotionally hugs Serena and Kaina, and Elle stands beside him and thinks about how he would have been able to continue living peacefully like this. After some time, Sylphia, with a sad face, sets the plates on the table and says she is sorry to everyone because her lunch became their first meal of the day. Holding the plate, Kaina smiles, saying, "It's all right." Mother and Serena, with the bucket in her hand, say, "More importantly, It was great because they got to see her go up a class. Sylphia emotionally touches her chin and says, "Thanks them. They all grew up to be so kind." But then she started crying, saying Ellie had left as soon as he finished his food. She is so lonely. He's been holding himself up in the workshop recently, she can't even say anything. Serena, with sweat beads on her face, slightly, while Kaina, with no expression, stood aside and remained silent. On the other side, El, holding his head, sat in his room on the carpet, and many books and notes were lying before him on the carpet. He worries that creating the continent's strongest golem isn't easy. Then he chins up, thinking he wants to create a golem that can think and move itself. First, he needs to make an ego. However, creating an ego isn't easy work. Mind magic is 8th class magic, known to be the most difficult. The only method right now is to use dark magic by mixing sinister thoughts of hatred, anger, jealousy, desire, and submissiveness. An ego is formed when he is lying on the floor and reading a book. He wonders if he understands it theoretically, but it's not working. It's still difficult for him, a 6th class. L questions himself, will it not work until he masters the 7th class? Then he places the book above his face and wonders if that won't happen soon. If he doesn't obtain the enlightenment of the 7th class, he won't be able to master it. Then he lowers the book, holding his head, and questions himself, how can he be enlightened when his mother uses hypogastric breathing for the first time? Then he remembers when his mother casts the huge fireball with her single hand, and he questioned himself, had he missed something? Serena peeked through the door as he was lost, saying she was sorry to bother him when he was busy, but they should get going. Elle sits up, asking if it's time to watch over Serena's magic training. Sorry, he will be right there. Elle goes near the door, then he grabs the door and asks her. She says something isn't going well. She stands at the door and replies she is sorry, but it's something basic no matter what she does. She doesn't understand the nature of mana. Elle surprisingly looks toward her and asks, but she can feel the mana responding, right? The feeling of mana filling up her whole body. Serena said no, it's not that she is unsure how to explain it, maybe it's mana's temperament. She touches her stomach and says she can feel various types of mana mixing inside her, and she doesn't understand the differences between their powers and traits. Elle's mouth opened in surprise, and she added that she wanted to see if he could explain it. Elle wondered about the nature of mana traits. Elle surprisingly says mana and traits, and she looks toward him and asks her thoughts. Has he never felt it before, Sir Elle? Without responding to her turn and standing behind, Elle called his name, asking Elle to go to the table side, where he knelt and took out the box from the cabin. Serena stood behind him, watching him doing this. Elle spilled a few blue mana stones on the table. Then he put one hand above the rocks, closed his eyes, and used some of his magic. He noticed that it was true each stone had distinct properties, not just 1 and 2, but every single one had its own set of qualities that mixed to form a type of mana. He excitedly opened his eyes and wondered how he had missed something as fundamental as this mana has different types. Elle closed his eyes, touched his chest, and thought he wanted to know more. A bright light spread around him. He opened his eyes and found himself in a different world. There, he saw a starry sea-like landscape. He extends his hand to touch the stars and walks to that place, thinking it's fantastic, like a sea of stars. It's beautiful, come to think of it. In a game he played in his past life, the components of a unit were critical during a raid. By grasping the traits of each unit, he can exhibit the most potent power after creating a specific combination. Additionally, that's his specialty with mana, which is the same as the fact that he might be able to develop strong magic depending on the combination. After this, he says to Serena he needs to test it out. She surprisingly looks toward him. A bead of sweat appears on her face, and she worriedly calls Sir Elle. Elle creates the spell circle. Many different types of mana stones carried with varying colors of aura fly around him, and he touches the spell circle and thinks of various types of mana, which Serena told him about if he cultivates it. It will become a great power. Elle raises his hands and starts cultivating the mana stones. A robust magic wind blows around him, and a vast magic lightning ball starts casting. With all his might, Elle creates that magic ball, thinking the power will sweep him away at this rate. Calm down. He needs to put his all into hypogastric breathing. Becoming a 7th class won't be easy, but he will do his best for his ultimate goal. Suddenly, that starry world crumbled, and the blue mana stones carried with different colors of aura moved around him. Elle, clothless, feels himself lying in that starry world. He opens his eyes, and the golden wings are falling. A golden bird flies over him toward that magic bright golden light. Elle extends his hand toward that bird. Serena shouted, calling L's name, and he lay on the floor, watching upside down to the ceiling side. With teary eyes, Serena sat beside him and asked him if he was right. L sat up, touched his face, and asked why he was lying down. She responded that a wind blew around him suddenly, and he fell over. She got worried because he wasn't responding to her. Is he all right? L surprisingly looks at his hand and responds yes, he is fine. But more importantly, L happily grabs Serena by her shoulder and smiles, saying because of her, he increases his class. Then he looks toward her and says that he thanks her because she told him about the different types of mana. Serena is stunned and thinks his class has increased. Sir L is unique. He is always working hard. L stood aside, was reading the book. Serena approached him from behind, asking what level of magic he mastered. Sir L? She felt like the power she felt from him surpassed Mother's. L turned and silently listened to her, then pointed his finger. He smiled, saying to keep it a secret. Serena was impressed. Finally, he can move on to the next stage of creating his golem. It's not too far now, the continent's strongest night golem. On the other side, Sylphia sat on the small rock on the hill before their home and talked to herself. This was a lovely place to live, but to think she had to leave this quickly. She removes the pendant from her neck, places it on her hand, and says, but Ellie is 17 soon for him. She needs to make a decision. With her teary eyes, she looks toward the pendant in which her husband's picture is on, and she says Rayon protects his son, L. With no expression, L extended his hand to Serena with a worried face, putting their hand on her chin, and stood aside. L shouted, all right, it's now finished. The hot food pot was lying on the shelf, and Serena happily complimented it. It looks so good. After some time, Serena, Sylphia, and Kaina sat at the food table, eating the sweet dish L had made for them. Sylphia smiled and complimented it so delicious. He was good at everything he did, Ellie. Kaina was impressively eating the sweet dish, Sylphia said, but she wanted to be the one to prepare celebrations for his 17th birthday. L served himself the food, then smiled, saying it was okay. He enjoyed cooking. L thinks he lived on his own for 10 years in his past life, so cooking sometimes is fun. It makes his mother happy, too. After this, L placed the kimchi fried rice plate on the table and said he would finish it and try it. L closed his eyes, touched the spatula to his face, and thought making kimchi fried rice in this place was difficult. He had to look everywhere for rice, cabbage, and the right spices, and then he used magic to create kimchi. L worriedly looks toward them, thinking about how the three will react, and the three ladies looking toward the kimchi and firing the rice plate impressively complimented. It's so good. L, happily clenching his fists, thinks, alright, Sylphia, after having the food sweat and waves her hand, saying, it's spicy, but it's good spicy. Serena closed her eyes and, with the sweat beads on her face, said hot while Kaina was happily enjoying the food. She asks L for one more serving. Serena and Sylphia ask them, too. L responds, alright. After sometimes L cleaning the dishes says it feels nice that everyone enjoyed eating. Sylphia comes to him and tells Ellie she has something to talk to him about. L turns to listen to his mother. L, looking towards Sylphia, wonders what it could be. She seems so severe that he replies, okay, mother. However, L stood beside the window in the room, and Sylphia sat on the chair before him. L wondered what can it be about. She was not saying anything. Is it a problematic topic? Did she not like what he made earlier? No, there is no way. Sylphia placed her folded hands on her legs and spoke to Ellie. There is something she has been hiding from him. It's about her past and her father. Now that he is an adult, she thought she should tell him. After this, she touches her chest and tells him she is a daughter of the Marquis Einhart family from the Bleared Empire, Sylphia von Einhart. Hearing this, L is surprised and wonders about the Bleared Empire's Einhart of the 100 nations in the continent, the Bleared Empire. It is one of the 5 strongest nations. The Marquis Einhart family is a mage family that has produced countless excellent mages. Marquis Einhart is said to almost be on the verge of 8th class, whereas his son also holds power over the empire as a 7th class expert. A proper elite family is what they are. He had been wondering all this time. The mother's necklace is artistic and could only have been made by a 7th class mage and above. All the books in this house are difficult to get his hand on unless he is an aristocrat and a mage of a renowned family. Sylphia sadly tells him she lost her mother just 4 days after she was born, so she was raised under her brother, who is much older than her, and her father's strict care. When she was 7, she was engaged to the prince of the Bleared Empire, but she wanted freedom. She didn't want to be restricted by anything. She just wanted to love life as she wanted. That's when she met Rayon Luvius and fell in love with him. He was a mage for their family, but he didn't excel as a mage, nor was he handsome, but he's someone who let her dream of freedom. Rayon pointed to her, saying she needs to be more confident in herself, Lady Sylphier. Moreover, Sylphier says she was supposed to get married to the prince when she turned 16, but she decided to run away with Rayon. She was finally chasing her dream of being free. Even as the Einhart family was chasing them, she was happy as long as she was with him, but they were caught within a year. They locked Sylphier in the cell. She, wearing a brown gown, sat huddled there on the bench. Her father angrily stood outside the cell, asking her how long she planned to stay like that. Also, the untouched food tray was lying on the floor inside the cell. Furthermore, her father asks her how much she likes that man. She turns and replies let him go, and she will kill herself. Her father grinned and said she was just as obstinate as he was. No, it's a great pair. He was just as worried about her. On the other side, Rayon was in a much worse condition than Sylphier. He was chained to a wall and couldn't even take a few steps. Moreover, he was wearing only old, tattered, dirty rags and looked visibly exhausted from standing for so long. However, the only thing on his mind was, is Sylphier okay? Sylphier's father asks her. He doesn't know, of course, but if that is how they two are usually all right, he will let him go. Sylphier is amazed by her father's words, and her father tells her she is his precious family. After all, Sylphier surprisingly calls her father's name. After this, the knight takes Rayon to the ground area at night, and Sylphier's father also takes her there. Sylphier desperately runs toward Rayon, calling him. They both lovingly touch and hug each other. Sylphier, looking into Rayon's eyes, asks if she is sorry he had to go through this because of her. Rayon grabs her and asks if he is okay, but he hears she is staying there for his sake. That's like being held hostage. Sylphier puts the finger on Rayon's mouth and heads down, saying she got to live a free life thanks to him. It was a short time, but she was happy. So then she heads up and says, with her teary eyes, please leave this place and live happily. She has no confidence to live in a world where he doesn't exist. Rayon gets speechless and calls Sylphier's name, grabs her hands, and starts crying. They both hold hands and put their head together. Rayon tells her that even if they are apart, they will be together forever, no matter what happens. Sylphier calls Rayon's name. Meanwhile, the knight swings his sword from behind and separates Rayon's neck from his body. The blood spills in the air, and this Sylphier becomes stone. Her hair flies in the air, and the blood spills on her clothes. She hardly speaks Rayon. Meanwhile, her father stands behind the knight, saying he has kept his promise to Sylphier to free him from the pain. He even let her say goodbye to him before his execution because he loves her so much. The knight points the bloody sword toward Sylphier. Her father raises his voice to be grateful. Sylphier scratches her hair, screams, crying. Then, the story shifts to the present. Sylphier, with his teary eyes, sits there and tells El Marquis Einhart never to forgive them. For ruining the engagement with the prince and having dirtied the family's name, she was excommunicated from the family, but for the sake of the family's reputation. Her father let her live there and told her to return once she was a 6th class master. El, listening to this, all was shocked. Furthermore, Sylphier says that all she could think of back then was how to end her life. That's when Ellie realized she was pregnant with him. She touched her stomach and, with teary eyes, smiled, saying that was the most joy she had felt in a while. Let's make her lovely son Ellie happy. She wanted to give him all the good things in the world. That's what she lived for, so Ellie intended to regain the name Einhart. Elle gets surprised, and Sylphier gets up, saying that now that she is a 6th class master, Einhart will take her back. After this, she extended her hand toward him, saying that place is best for a mage to learn. She can give him a better environment to study in if they go there, so Ellie, let's go back home with her. While hearing this, Elle was shocked. Elle surprisingly asks why. Now that she is a 6th class master, she can get a title there, so why do they need to return to the Einhart family? He wonders. He doesn't understand why she would want to go back to that horrible family. Sylphier tells him the aristocracy is treated differently there in this nation, and the Bleared Empire is the strongest nation on the continent. The Marquis Einhart family is at a similar level to the royal family. She clenches her fist and says she wants him to live up to his potential in the best environment possible. She touches her folded hand to her chest and asks him to consider it. Elle gets speechless, then thinking for a while, he sighs and says all right, he will go. Sylphier looks toward him, slightly smiles, then hugs her, saying she loves him. Her son, Ellie responds he adores her too, they should start preparing to leave. Elle left the room. He noticed Serena and Kaina with sad faces standing outside the room. Serena says her sorry. They didn't mean to eavesdrop, then she heads down, asking what is going to happen to them. Then, they are technically slaves. If he is going to the Einhards, then they can no longer. Kaina sadly touch Serena to console her. Elle sighs and smiles, then goes to them, saying they are family, and they will always be together. Then he moves his hand and says he is thinking of ways to get them new identities. For example, by registering them as mercenaries, so don't worry and keep their chins up. Both of them get happy. Serena, with teary eyes, smiles and thanks him. Kaina also smiles and thanks him. Elle turns to ask if there is a place he wants to stop by that he can't let the mother know about. Why don't they too start getting ready to leave? Serena happily put a hand on her chest and responded okay. Then Elle, with a smiley face, turned to go. Then he goes outside the home thinking he can't change his mother's mind. Then, there is only one thing left for him to do. After this, in the Dibble store, the Dibble welcome Elle there, and in response, Elle says, "It's been a while, Mr. Dibble." They both sit on the chair before each other. Dibble asks him, thanks to the rights to the sales of magic stones, which he grants them. Their business is thriving, thanks to him very much. Elle takes a deep breath, and then says he came to ask for a favor today as he owns a company. He is sure he has an excellent information network, right? Dibble responds that they also have partnerships with information guilds all over the continent. They can even tell him about the king's hidden wealth. Elle asks him to please tell him everything he knows about the Marquis Einhart family of the Bleared Empire. Dibble gets stunned, then looks toward Elle and wonders what is happening in this atmosphere. He has never seen him look like this before. Dibble gulped, asking the Einharts, alright? Then he explains that the Marquis Einhart family has a history of 700 years in the Bleared Empire. It is one of the most prestigious families of the empire. It has produced 3 8th-class great mages, and there are hundreds of mages affiliated with the family. The Marquis has considerable influence, so he can mobilize thousands of mages if he wishes to. Also, there was the infamous incident about the engagement with the Crown Prince right before her marriage with the Crown Prince. The daughter of the Marquis ran away with another man. The Marquis and Crown Prince forgave her with a generous heart and helped her live a quiet life. Moreover, he says originally, it was a crime that was enough to get one beheaded. But because the Marquis and the Crown Prince forgave her over such a grave crime, many aristocrats praised them. Elle becomes speechless and wonders why they committed those terrible acts and uses his mother as a political device to support their lies. Dibble says, however, that there are rumors that the Marquis is a cold and ruthless man who will do anything for his family's reputation. It's best not to get involved with them. Elle angrily gets up and clenches his fist, saying he sees. Then he wonders if they go to the Einharts, they will definitely accept his mother again. But there is a high likelihood that she will be used if they try to harm them in any way. He will make them pay. As Elle turned to leave, Dibble points said the way. Tower Master Brion seemed rather lonely. Elle surprisingly turns, and then Elle goes to the tower. Master Brion, resting his hand under his face, sits on the chair, closes his eyes, knocks his finger on the table, and says it sure is lonely. Well, it's common for an old man to be forgotten about. Elle stood behind him, waving his hand, and with a bead of sweat on his face, he smiled, responding that's why he came to see him. He even brought him a gift. Brion folded his arm, turned, appearing somewhat offended, then asked Elle for a gift. Elle shows him the notes and explains with a smile that it's a restoration blueprint for the Night Golem. Brion gets stunned and instantly gets up from the chair asking this, and Elle responds, however, it's not possible to make a golem with a consciousness of its own. A knight has to control it. He doesn't think any mage can create a golem with consciousness. Brion checks the notes and smiles, asking what is so. Elle places his hands on the table and surprisingly asks what it is. Brion, opening the notes, responds he seems to know something else. Elle says he is just tired from all the experiments. Brion adds, alright, if he says so. Elle worriedly laughs and stretches his neck. Wonder he is so quick to catch on. Moreover, Elle says he will also be leaving this place with his family soon, and he doesn't think they will be able to return. Brion gets stunned and, raising his brows, asks if he can't. Then he thinks for a while, folds the notes, and places them on the table, saying that judging from his expression, it looks like something big. After this, he puts his hands on Elle's shoulder, looks deep into his eyes, and says alright, go with his talent. He knows he will make a name for himself on this continent someday. He is sure he will hear news of him there no matter where he is. Elle looks toward him, slightly smiling, saying thanks for everything until now. He will come back to visit someday. Brion says he will be waiting. After this, as night approached, the moon rose over L's family house in the night sky. L found himself back in his laboratory with a few papers flying around on his table, and some magic stones in a small container, having said goodbye to everyone he wanted to. It was time for him to make his final preparation. He stretched out his hand and used some of his magic, causing a large magic circle to appear before him. A giant golem dressed in golden armor emerged from the spell circle and stood before L. L thinks he told the Tower Master Grandpa he couldn't, but L raises his voice to awaken the Golden Knight. A shining golden light emanated from the small opening in its helmet, and the golem bowed before its new master, greeting him with dignity. L rubbed the back of his head and said it was a little lacking because he didn't put in the best ego. He will need him to do something in a little while. Until then, stay in the pocket place. The golem responds to his liege. He will wait. Then the golem will get up, turn, and return to the spell circle. As he entered the spell circle and returned, the spell circle ended. L stood behind, thinking the crystallization of all his magic knowledge would appear whenever he called for it, but he just hoped he wouldn't ever have to see its power. L carried with a glowing aura and said, well then, time to go on the other side. In the very largest state of the Einhart's family, the Marquis and his son Gultan were playing a game of chess. Gultan told his father the investigation into the magic stone is completed. Marquis asked him they have raked in a lot of money. While avoiding them, Gultan replies he has found the source and placed his chess piece on one of the squares. Marquis destroyed the piece Gultan had put there and with a greedy expression said he was delighted that he had finally managed to find the source. Marquis asks why it took him so long to find the source of the magic stones. He is sure he asked him to investigate this several years ago. Gultan responded the golems used as security made by the developer were quite strong. Even the top-level notorious assassins from the Brad family were all killed. Marquis picks up the chess piece, stares at it, and asks a formidable opponent so they can achieve something that no one else could restore. Gultan extends his hand toward the chessboard and responds that the other magic towers have become desperate to find the origin of the magic stones, as he knows they don't cost much to produce. So, if they create them, it's a magic item that can generate a lot of money. Marquis nods, saying it is an excellent item if they are able to sell it among the continent's top 10 stores. The Einhart family's store will become the best on the continent. As Marquis stands there staring at the chess piece, sees Gultan wonders father, who doesn't give out compliments a lot, to think he's complimenting magic stones. It must mean it's that great of an item. After this, they again start playing the game. Gultan explains he ended up finding the source of the magic stones. To his surprise, the developer's name is a mage named Sylphir. Marquis gets stunned and puts a chess piece on the board. Gultan tells him, well, to be precise, it's her son L. However, L is 17 this year. He thinks Sylphir is the one who developed it. Marquis surprisingly asks Sylphir, his daughter, whom he exiled Sylphir. Then he waves his hand and asks Gultan to send someone right away and bring Sylphir to him. After this, he gets up and goes toward the window side, opening his arms, and puts forth a condition saying they will accept her into the family again. She will give in if he says they will also take her son since she is uselessly stubborn. Then he thinks about the magic stones and clenches his fist, saying if they have them, the Einhart family will be in its prime again. Gultan stands behind his father and asks him what he would do about the issues of the crown prince. He would feel annoyed if Sylphir were to return. Marquis turns and moves his hand, responding to leave him be as long as he is not hostile toward them. There is no need for them to be hostile towards him. Marquis thinks she was useless to him in the past, but it's time that his daughter, whom he abandoned, will help him. On the other side, Sylphir stood outside and, with a sad face, was looking toward her home. Then she turned her face when L, wearing a bag, asked her to let's go, mother. Both Serena and Kaina stood aside from Sylphir's turn, saying she was sorry she didn't know they had to leave so soon, but now that they were leaving, her heart was heavy. She said she would return to her family. L turned, thinking, to be honest, he was fine not returning to that place with painful memories. He wants to tell her that he has become a 7th-class master. Sylphir turned and stepped ahead of both Serena and Kaina, touching her back to comfort her. L stood behind with no expressions, wonders in a world where he calls a 40-year-old person a genius if they reached 7th class. He has no way to explain how a 17-year-old reached that level. He doesn't want his mother to see him differently because he is abnormal. L clenched his fist, wondering since he couldn't tell her everything, even if his power was exposed due to a problematic situation. However, they leave Banzark village. Sylphir points toward the gate and tells L and his 2 sisters, okay, this warp gate will take them to the capital, Kefermil. Sylphia approached the guard before the gate and asked if the four wanted to go to Kefirmel and how much it would cost. The guard is bored with his job and responds, "It will be 200 gold each, a total of 800 gold." Sylphia is stunned and raises her voice, asking for 800 gold, which is too expensive. Her voice echoes through the hall. The guard asks so she can't pay. He grabs Sylphia's wrist, which surprises her, and he tells her that most people who use this are nobles and wealthy. If she can't pay, get lost. When her mother was roughly handled, Kaina immediately sprang into action before the guard could realize what was happening. She halted her attack just a few inches from his head with an angry look and warned the guard not to touch her family as he pleased. Serena and Elle are surprised, and Sylphia turns to call Kaina, asking why the sudden outburst took aback the guard, but subsequently releases Sylphia and steps back slightly. Suddenly, another guard entered the hall, asking, "Please stop thinking he caused such a problem in that short time." The guard apologized to Sylphia and others, saying he was rude when he was away. Then he goes to that first guard and angrily presses his head, saying, "Please go back." The first guard sits on the floor, making a voice in pain sees Sylphia feel sympathy for the first guard. After this, the second guard turns, asking if their destination is Kefirmel. It takes half a year to walk to the Bleared Empire, so the total will be 400 gold. And if it's 4 and more people traveling, there is a discount so the price is 360 gold. Sylphia joined her hands and smiled, and Elle wondered if they had almost paid 800 gold. Sylphia smiled, saying that's great. She knew it was around that price. Elle paid the money to the guard, and he received the money and thanked him. The guard beside the table bent to do something and asked them if they were going on vacation. Elle responded no, they were moving there. The guard says he sees and must feel rest assured having such a reliable family. Hearing Serena, Elle, and Sylphia turn their faces toward Kaina. After this, the guard, pointing aside, smiles and asks them to please head to the magic circle. The four stood in the middle of the magic circle. The guard said goodbye. Elle, Sylphia, Serena, and Kaina were eager to see what would happen next. A small blue beam of light descended upon them, causing them to dissolve into smaller blue sparks that rose into the air where the blue light originated from together. They landed in a small location in the middle of Kefirmel at a teleportation gate. Upon their arrival, Serena asks if they are there. Kaina responds yes, she thinks so. After some time, they move from there. Elle and his sister marveled at seeing a small city with a large bell tower, realizing it must be Kefirmel. Sylphia pointed to the building and told them they would be staying over there today. Then she stepped ahead, saying they needed to register Serena and Kaina as mercenaries before they arrived at the Marquis's estate. The building's automatic door opened, and Sylphia smiled, entering. She was sure they would be highly ranked mercenaries if it were their skill level. Elle, Serena, and Kaina were following their mother, and Sylphia, with a happy face, say let's quickly unpack and go out. She will show them around. Suddenly, she was shocked and started sweating to see the Crown Prince and his guard standing before her. She hardly speaks, asking Crown Prince Alkaid. Alkaid sees her smile, saying he finally gets to see her. Sylphia Elle wonders about the Crown Prince's mother's former fiancé. As per the information he received from the Dibble store after many investigations, when his mother got captured after she ran away from her family, his father, Rayon Luvius, was killed brutally. It was all due to the Crown Prince's order. Alkaid looks toward Sylphia and says she seems well. He is relieved with a severe face and looks down, responding, "Yes, His Highness." As he asks her to relax, she heads up and looks toward him. Alkaid says they broke up due to an unfortunate event, but he is glad he got to see her again. Then he, moving his hand, asks who these children are. Sylphia responds what is the best way to explain. As she was about to complete her sentence, Kaina seemed like a gentleman, unlike what she had heard. With a serious face, Sylphia remains silent, and Elle stares at Alkaid and wonders if this guy is wearing a mask. Alkaid extends his hand towards Sylphia and says she is still beautiful. She should be in her 30s, but she is still charming. The prettiest woman in the Bleared Empire, she is suitable to be his woman. No matter what happens, he is going to get her. After reaching the 7th class, Elle angrily clenches his teeth and wonders how he can see his hidden temperament. Elle steps ahead, asking if he knows his mother. Alkaid is surprised, and Elle extends his hand and smiles, saying nice to meet him. He is her son, Elle. Then Wonder doesn't look at his mother with those filthy eyes. Alkaid angrily smirked, thinking of her son. Alkaid asks if he is her son, right? He looks just like her. Elle smiles, and Alkaid stands before him and says he would like to talk more, but has matters to attend to. Then he asks why they don't have a drink. L stands before his family if they get a chance and replies that he will look forward to it. Alkaid passes by L, goes near Sylphir, and calls her name, saying she is his woman. Sylphir gets scared, Alkaid and his men leave, and L angrily looks toward him and abuses him in his mind. Serena surprisingly looks toward L's facial expression. Alkaid steps ahead and closes his eyes, saying she must be returning to her family. Then he stops there and says he guessed she is becoming a 6th class master, beautiful and talented with magic. She is the perfect woman for him. He, with evil intentions, says it wouldn't be wrong to take her in as a mistress. It will make Marquis Einhart happy, too, but he should get rid of that kid. L stood behind angrily, clenched his fist, and then worriedly called his mother. She touched her head and smiled, saying sorry, she should get it together. Let's go to the guild for the mercenary registration. Then she raises her fist, saying they will both do well. Both Serena and Kaina, looking at Sylphir, remain silent. After this, in the mercenary guild, a receptionist sits there. Sylphir, with her children, goes to the receptionist and points toward Serena, and Kaina asks him if these two would like to take the mercenary registration exam. The receptionist man welcomes them there, and then explains to them mercenaries receive a rank ranging from F to B. To decide their rank, they will have to fight the guild master, who is in a rank. The guild master a rank gets there from behind and laughs, asking two women for today. Are they sure it will be alright? They two are so cute. They turn and look toward the guild master, and he, waving his hand, asks them why they don't take the test simultaneously. However, he pointed to them, winked, and said he would go easy on them so they wouldn't get hurt. Ladies, both Serena and Kaina get furious at his actions and words. Serena calls Kaina, and Kaina, with a bored face, takes a deep breath and calls Serena's name. After some time, in the ground area, the guild master stands before both girls and says they can come at him whenever they want. Then he laughed, pointed his thumb to him, and winked, saying give it their all. Both the girls ask him if he is sure, and he responds don't worry, he won't get mad at anything. Both the girls says together well then. Kaina, activating her fire magic powers, angrily takes her swing from sheath, jumps up, and stands in the air to raise her fire sword. Then she jumped on the ground and slashed her sword at the guild master. Serena stood on the spell circle and activated her wind magic. A blue aura surrounded her, and she attacked the guild master with her wind magic edge. The guild master rolled in the wind magic tornado and fell away. After attacking him, the girls stood beside each other, and the guild master was lying on the ground. Touching his stomach, he felt dizzy and fearfully said they were B rank. Elle laughed and happily clapped, saying congratulations, they too did well. They got the highest ranks. Serena touched her chest, sighed, and smiled, saying they were relieved. Kaina sighed and asked if that would be good enough to protect her mother. Sylphir is lost in her thoughts and remains silent. Kaina again calls their mother. Sylphir snaps out of her thoughts and turns, asking what she starts to clap, responding yes, they too are excellent. They did great. Both Serena and Kaina surprisingly looked toward their mother. Elle worriedly looks toward Sylphir, and then at moonlit night, Sylphir sits on the bed in her room and wonders if he hasn't changed. He is still obsessed with her, and he will try to take her in as a mistress right away. If that happens, Ellie will be like Rayon. Ellie is her everything. She would sacrifice everything for Ellie's sake. She can't let that child be hurt. She wants to return to the family quietly, but to meet the prince in a place like this. The Einharts will prioritize obeying the prince over protecting Ellie, and she has to make it so the family will protect Ellie. To do that, as she was lost in her thoughts, her room door knocked, and Elle asked mother if he was coming in. Sylphir snapped out of her thoughts, and Elle entered the room. She asked him what he thought about offering the magic stone creation method to the Einharts as a condition. Elle remains silent, and Sylphir tells him that since the entire continent is obsessed with magic stones, she is sure the Marquis wants that information. He will protect them if they say they will give them the method. A blue magic aura released from Elle's body, and he folded his arms back and, with a smile, says mother, he can protect everyone without doing something like that. Serena and Kaina also enter the room, saying they are there too. Serena smiles, saying they will protect her, and Sir L. Sylphir asks Serena, Kaina. Serena and Kaina, holding the food bags, stood beside Elle and smiled, and Elle showed the wine bottle and glass smile, saying let's drink and forget about all the wrong things. Then he shakes the wine bottle and smiles, saying he can drink with her now that he is 17. Serena shows the food bags and adds they have prepared all this. Sylphir asks them when they did. She gets emotional and smiles. Serena sits beside Sylphir on the bed. Elle opens the wine bottle and starts swerving them. However, they enjoy their meal, and Elle wonders if his parents from his past life passed away early, so he never got to drink with them. Even when things got hard because of debt, he couldn't do anything and wanted to help them. Sylphia, Serena, and Kaina, enjoying their meal, were laughing and talking to each other. Elle looks toward the three of them and thinks he has grown more robust and faster than others. With just his efforts, he will do things for his mother that he couldn't do for his past life's parents. Elle holds the wine glass and laughs, saying everyone loves them. Sylphia asks Ellie if he is already drunk, and Elle wonders if he won't forgive anyone who hurts to break this happiness. The enormous golden golem bows and says his liege order is accepted. Elle stood in his room before the window. The sunlight was coming through the window and falling on him. He talked to himself. He hoped today would pass without any problems. After some time, they arrived at Einhardt's residence. They four stood outside the main gate entrance. Serena impressively said it was huge, as expected of the most renowned family. Kaina added that it was as big as the Banzark walls. Serena complimented it as excellent. Two guards stood outside the gate holding spears. With a sad face, Sylphia held her shoulder bag strap and said it hadn't changed. A strong wind was blowing there, which made her hair fly. She took a deep breath and relaxed, then, with a severe face, she stepped toward the gate. As she goes near the entrance, the guard asks her if this is the Marquis Einhardt's family residence, which brings her there. She replies she has come to meet the Marquis. The guard asks if she has made an appointment prior. If she didn't, she could not meet him. Sylphia touches herself, raises her voice, and then tells Marquis Einhardt that Sylphia is back after 17 years. The guard gets stunned and asks Lady Sylphia. He apologizes he will report it right away. The guard quickly opened the gate and ran inside to inform, while Sylphia, with a sad face, stood there with folded hands and wondering. According to the rumors, the Marquis Einhardt family's power visibly decreased after the engagement was broken. After kicking her out, father was so sad that he refused to eat and drink for a month. She looked toward the mansion and pondered that Rayon's execution was the prince's order, so he had no choice. It wasn't something he did because he wanted to. She remembers Marquis's words when he shouted at her, but is grateful, then wonders why he said that. Meanwhile, Elle touched her shoulder and smiled, lost in her thoughts. She turned and felt his hand, and she smiled, too. Meanwhile, Marquis with Colton gets there, calling Sylphia, and she looks toward them. Coming, asks her father's brother. Marquis touches her shoulder and says he is sorry Sylphia was terrible. Marquis's words and actions make her surprised. She doesn't believe her eyes. She wonders father, who has always been confident and chased after glory for the family, apologizes to her first father must have had some reason. Sylphia apologizes to her father, and Marquis, with a severe face, stares at Elle and asks if that is her son. Sylphia gets stunned and then replies yes, he is her son, Elle. Then she tells Elle this is his grandfather. Elle looks toward Marquis and smiles, saying he is Elle's grandfather. Marquis smiles, responding yes, he is his grandfather. He is glad to meet him. Marquis looks toward Elle and ponders. He sounds nice, but the moment he notices him, his eyes change, and he is scanning his mana with incredible speed. It's impossible he is a 5th class at that age. He must be about 17. It's surprising enough that Sylphia became a 6th class. Moreover, the Marquis, with a smiley face, wonders what an unbelievable genius as the Marquis greets Sylphia, and Elle stands behind smiling, wondering if the Marquis is someone of great power. Still, he shouldn't be able to recognize that he is a 7th class. Sylphia brother, pointing inside, asks the father why they don't talk inside. Marquis's turn responds let's do that, and then he asks Sylphia and her children to come with them. After some time, Marquis, Colton, Sylphia, and Elle sat in the hall. Marquis tells them he told the girls who came with her to rest. He wanted to have a conversation with just the family. Sylphia asks about what? Marquis addresses Sylphia, asking if it is true that she is the developer of the magic stone. Sylphia is surprised by that question. Marquis folded their hands under his face and smiled, thinking if they could sell magic stones, their family's wealth would be doubled, and they would have a powerful influence over the empire's mages. Then, the Einhardt family will be much more powerful, and the royal family won't be the ones to have authority over the empire anymore. It would be them he can't let go of a chance. This great L is looking toward Marquis and wonders if his eyes are full of greed. It's obvious what they are thinking. Marquis smiles and says to Sylphia that he hopes they can be open with each other. Now that she is back, she must contribute to the betterment of the family. Sylphia wonders about a duty, rests her hands on the table, makes a fist, and responds, but there is a condition. Marquis asks for a condition, and she asks to make L. The Marquis hears Marquis, and Gultan gets shocked, asking if she is serious. L surprisingly calls their mother, and Sylphia responds to her father. Of course, it was Ellie who made the magic stone. She didn't do anything as he had seen earlier when he had scanned his mana. L is already a 5th class expert at 17. L surprisingly thinks she noticed too, and Sylphia adds that out of the 10 8th-class masters on the continent, no one had reached 5th class. At 17, Ellie will soon become a mage strong enough to shake up the entire continent. The whole continent recognizes the value of the magic stones combined with the world's best genius mage. The Einhart family can become the most incredible family on the continent, not just in the Bleared Empire. Moreover, she asks her father to ask her whether she will let him become a marquis. Her father waved his hand and smiled, responding that he could not make such a grand decision. Sylphia says she came there with the plan to make Ellie the successor. He needs to decide right now. Marquis gets angry and remains silent. Sylphia says Ellie will become a mage better than him if he cannot answer her. Then she cannot give him the secret behind the magic stones. Marquis wonders. He has never seen her like this before. She always obeyed him and his son like a sheep, but now, Marquis asks. In his mind, a woman is weak, but a mother is strong. He thoughtfully responds okay, he needs a bit of time to think. He will consider it. Sylphia asks him if she will look forward to his decision. After this, both Sylphia and Elle walk into the corridor. Elle asks Mother about what she said earlier. She turns, replaying Don't worry, Elle says. But meanwhile, Serena and Kaina also get there, and, with a sad face, call together Mother. Sylphia hugs them, saying Serena, Kaina, she is sorry they just left them behind. That Serena responded to Mother. They were worried about Kaina holding Sylphia's hand and asked her if she was okay. Sylphia replies yes, thanks. Then she asks have seen their rooms yet. She will guide them. Elle opened the room door to enter, thinking he never expected her to say that. Then he closed the door and stood beside it wondering, but there was no way the Marquis would accept it. He needed to look into things further. Elle raises his voice and summons magic glasses. His magic glasses appear and are worn on his face. He sets his glasses and says his eyesight is satisfactory, but he needs these glasses to concentrate better. In his past, Elle wore the same glasses, then he holds the side of his glasses and thinks it reminds him of the past, too. He can see the mana flow better with these magic glasses he created. He will see what the Marquis thinks. He raises his hand and uses his invisibility magic. The shining aura surrounds him, and he disappears from the room. Only the spots of shining magic aura remain there. The same shining magic spots appear in the corridor. Elle is invisible, and only those spots where wherever he goes, he passes the corridor, finding Marquis's room. He passes through the hall and finally finds the room. He stands outside the room. There, the Marquis and Gultan's voices are coming out. Gultan asks him what he will do. Father, will he have that child be the successor? Marquis asks the one. Marquis says him don't make that face, and inside the room, Marquis and Gultan stand before the target and take turns throwing knives at it, keeping themselves occupied during their conversation. Elle remained invisible, hiding behind the small partition in the room to better eavesdrop on their conversation. Marquis sets the knife to throw it toward the target and says her son is qualified to want that position. Then he moves the knife, saying 5th class at the age of 17. He is incredibly talented. Then he throws the knife toward the target, saying but he is someone who grew up in a foreign nation for 17 years. He is not fit for this family. The knife is stuck almost in the center of the target, and Gultan asks him who knows if he came there for revenge. Sylphia is also a 6th class master, so it might be a big problem. Marquis picks another knife from the table, asking for a big problem. There are 20 mages there who are above 6th class. They won't lose to them. Then he asks Gultan, who stood behind with a worried face, if he remembers the letter they received from the prince. It said that if he agreed, he would take Sylphia as a mistress. Gultan asks, but will it be okay? She probably knows about that, and if she becomes the prince's mistress, she might reveal that they kidnapped talented individuals from other countries in secret to brainwash them, and made them a part of their affiliation. Marquis shouts and shuts his mouth. The scared Gultan looks toward his father. Marquis, angrily holding the knife and looking toward him, says that even with the magic of silence, anyone could be listening. Elle sat there listening to this wonder. He noticed several devices set up that even 6th class mages couldn't easily undo, but they were so careful. If this truth is revealed, beads of sweat appear on Elle's face, and he wonders if it will be a big enough scandal to bring down the entire Einhart family. However, Gultan says he will never speak of it again. Marquis, looking aside, responds, well, he doesn't need to be wary of the prince anyway. He is involved in it too. He won't do anything that would harm him. Gultan asks them what they say to him. Marquis sets the knife to throw and responds to the prince's proposal of magic stone and L's talent. They are all valuable things. He offers the knife to Gultan, asking what he would do. Gultan stares at the knife, wondering if this is a test if he doesn't make up for the mistake. Just now, he closes his lips tightly and gulp. After this, he takes the knife from his father, saying that he would first reply to the prince and gladly send Sylphia as his mistress and capture L. He will figure out the magic stone developing method from Sylphia in exchange for L's life. Marquis sits aside and asks if that's all. Gultan throws the knife toward the target and responds that the knife is stuck in the target. He adds that he will take the information about the magic stone and send Sylphia to the prince, even if it takes force. If she resists, he will seal her powers as a mage and brainwash L to make him a mage loyal to the family. Furthermore, they can show the prince a corpse that looks similar to L and tell him that he died from an unfortunate accident. L, hearing this, gets speechless. Marquis claps and laughs, complimenting him that he is fit to be a successor. He is fantastic. He will leave this one to him. Then, he will await results. L clenches his fist, and Gultan responds that he will do his best. Father. L wonders what a cold-hearted family, why couldn't he put down his mother's suggestion and prevent them from coming to a place like this? L's hands started trembling in anger, and he gritted his teeth, wondering instead that he was drunk on superiority over others and thought he could make her happy no matter the circumstances. He just wanted to respect his mother's opinions, but this is the result of that. He can deal with them trying to use him, but pulling the prince into this, he can't forgive them. Suddenly, Marquis notices someone hiding behind the partition. He is astonished, wondering what invisibility is. Has that person been there all this time? He doesn't even notice. He raises his voice, asking who goes there. L then extended his hand and prepared a spell. The Marquis and his son Gultan noticed the surge of magic, but they had little time to react because L had already finished casting his modified spell of Endless Flame Seed and unleashed it. L revealed himself, which surprised the Marquis and Gultan, wondering if he had overheard their entire conversation as a spell had a slight delay. It exploded in a few seconds. Later, the Marquis looked shocked as he realized what would happen. A massive explosion followed, and a giant fireball soared through the estate's roof into the sky. Right after the first explosion, another one followed just as big, tearing everything apart, and the ground was scorched entirely by the tremendous explosions. Ashes and smoke filled the air. However, the Marquis and his son didn't appear to have any visible direct injuries from the blast. The Marquis was astonished at the spell, and asks, "It's unbelievable any other mage would take half an hour to cast such a spell. This is a 7th class spell that could kill thousands." Meanwhile, the guards run into that destroyed room, asking Marquis and Lord Gultan if they are okay and who is the one that is. L stood in the air, raising his voice, asking if they were alive. Marquis, Gultan, and the guards looked up with beads of sweat on their faces. The guards grabbed the handle of their swords to pull them from the sheathing. L stands up, glares at Marquis and his son, and says he is glad. His anger is too big for things to end just because the whole place is burning in the fire. One of the guards recognized him. He was Sylphia's son. L again extended his hand, not giving them much opportunity to react. Under his palm, a small orb formed, surrounded by a magical circle. L told them he would make sure they tasted endless suffering. He would make them forever regret having placed their dirty hands on his family. L raised his hand, and the tiny orb expanded into a sizable magical circle behind him. L invoked a summoning spell declaring misery and destruction unto those who stood in his path. His eyes were filled with focus and hatred toward the individuals present. He completed his summoning, and his night golem in golden armor emerged from its interdimensional space, standing behind L. The guard couldn't believe what they saw, wondering a night golem. How was that there? They pointed their swords toward L and the night golem. Marquis laughs, and Gultan asks father. Marquis, with a greedy face, says this is great. This is the best, no one can bring back the night golem. The guards were scared, and one of the guards shouted that's a fake. He swore in the name of Einhart that he wouldn't let him do as he wished. A lightning magic circle was behind the golem, and the guards ran toward the golem to attack. The golem's facial armor started glowing, and he struck the guards and threw them all away in one blow. The guards are flying in the air, thud away. Gultan fearfully asks how this is possible for all the knights. The guards thud away on the ground, and blood from their bodies spilt out. Marquis stretched his hand and said, "Of course, that's not a fake. Their family can become the most powerful with that." Marquis, pointing toward L, raises his voice, ordering the new guards who gather behind the attack. The enemy is still alive to kill that idiot and make him confess the secret behind the night golem. With an angry face, L says to Marquis all he knows is greed. He is already living an extravagant life, and he does not have enough retirement funds. Marquis, with an evil face, grinned. Marquis orders the guard to kill that idiot and make him confess the secret behind the night golem. L floated beside his golem, observing the attacking guards and the devastated charred ground. Another magical circle hovered in front of his golem, deflecting the attack. Directed at him, L began positioning himself behind his golem and channeling more mana into it. As a result, his mana spread out in waves around him, pushing back all the present individuals slightly. The guards recognized the extreme power of this mana and realized they couldn't contend with it. Even Gul'dan had to defend himself somewhat against the mana controlled by L through his golem. He wondered if it was unique that this kind of mana was a sword master rank. No, it was apparent. Marquis, surprised, wondered if someone who could make a golem this strong was just a 5th class, but when he scanned his mana, he was then the person who used the 7th class magic. Could it be? Is he a 7th class? He tricked him into the strongest mage out of all 7th classes. L carried with his lightning magic. Looking toward Marquis' smile, his smiley face made Marquis mad, and he cast the spell, shouting at the arrogant little idiot boy. Marquis angrily clasped his hands together and prepared a star spell circle to attack L. L stood beside the golem, stretched out his hand to create his blue magic shelter before him, and threw the magic storm toward Marquis to dodge his attack. He wonders grandfather and uncle who tried to use him and his mother. No, they are not even worth being called that. L gets furious. His eyes start glowing, and he stands up and raises his voice. He will as he is about to complete his sentence. Meanwhile, Sylphia, with Serena and Kaina, gets there and stands on the ground, raising her voice and asking Ellie what is happening. L's attention diverted, and he worriedly requested his mother and wondered if she was there. He doesn't want his mother to find out about what he is going to do right now and the two people's cowardly and cruel plan. L remembers Marquia's words when he says he will take the information about the magic stone and send Sylphia to the prince, even if it takes force. And if she resists, he will seal her powers as a mage. Furthermore, when Marquis laughs and claps, saying he is fit to be a successor, L wonder what would happen if their mother were to find out. He worriedly looked toward his mother. The fire burned the ground. As L doesn't speak and wonders, Sylphia asks Ellie to answer her. Sylphia worriedly looks toward Elle and ponders she has never seen Ellie that mad. Something ridiculous is probably happening. Elle continued gazing at his mother and siblings, then sighed deeply, realizing he had no choice. He closed his eyes and started forming a small sphere with many magical circles rotating around it. These magical circles grew more enormous and pulsated outward. The Marquis recognized that's magic capture. Was he recording the conversation from earlier? Their family is over. If that gets out, no one can know about it. He instantly turns and points to Elle to kill him. He is the one who sets off the explosion. Gul'dan is astonished, and Sylphia raises her voice, asking father what is happening. He is not even asking for the reason. Marquis shouts to shut it, and Sylphia asks if Ellie is his grandson. Marquis doesn't listen to her. He quickly turns, ordering the guards to hurry. He is a high-class mage, so stay alert. The guards run toward Elle, raising their swords. Elle asks the golem Golden Knight to overpower them, but don't kill them. The golem extended his hand, conjuring the golden sword and assuring his liege order was accepted. The guards, raising their swords, run and shout, "Destroy that sword." Elle ponders the impossible. The golden sword is a sword that symbolizes the golden golem. It's made of dwarven-made pure steel with very few contaminants and coated with magic metal for magic seals. The blade's face is coated with gold and cast with a spell that deflects the shock of impact. It is also imbued with sharpness magic to add piercing power. Therefore, the golden sword is as good as a divine sword. It was the same in the game in his past life. Even the most vital units lose to another if not regularly upgraded. He needs to pull up the stats to their peak. He is more of a realist than an idealist. The guards, angrily raising their swords, stood before the golem. The golem swung its golden sword, and he sliced many guards' swords into pieces in a single blow. Sees Marquis and Gul'dan are astonished. One of the guards grabs his magic sword angrily, and shouts don't underestimate them. The golden golem swings its golden sword and slices the knight's sword. The knight gets scared, and beads of sweat appear on his face. A golem attacks the knights, who twirl in the air and thud away. The remaining knights are scared. One of them says this is impossible. As they were about to lose faith, one shouted, "Don't panic. The Lord's order is absolute. They need to kill him." Suddenly, the knight captain, wearing armor, sits on his horse, gets there, and sees him coming. The knight raises their voice, "Knight captain." L think that if that man is the knight captain, he must be on the high end of the sword master rank. The knight captain dismounts from the horse, bows before the Marquis, and apologizes for being late. Marquis orders him to go. The captain heads up, responding yes, sir. Then he gets up, sets his visor, and says he is the knight captain of the Marquis Einhart family. He grabs his sword and pulls it from the sheath, then raises his magic sword, saying massacre the enemy. A blue lightning aura emerges from the sword. L asks the Golden Knight to activate level 2 mode. The Golden Golem responds, seal undone. The Golden extends its hand and covers itself in golden light. First, its hands and arms become slightly slimmer, followed by its shoulders, head, and finally, the rest of its body. It now looked much more flexible, faster, and robust, ready to continue defending L. Additionally, since it was not somewhat thinner, it appeared even more fearsome and aggressive. The knights are stunned and raise their voices, asking why it changed. L thinks that's not it. The Golden Golem extended its hand and conjured the golden sword, and then he stood on the ground, clenching its sword. The knight's captain wonders about the aura blade. The golem, swinging its sword, steps ahead toward the knights, and the knight captain also steps ahead from his side, swinging his sword and asking if he looks that weak to him. He is no match for him, even with the aura blade. However, both swing their sword, and the duel starts between them. The golem is slightly more giant than the knight captain, and the golden aura light emerges from where their swords collide. The bright golden light surrounded the area, making it difficult for them to watch the duel. L floated in the air and, without expression and blinking, his eyes watched the duel as the light ended, and everyone on the ground could see the knight, quite injured, standing before the golem. The blood from his body spilled around, and he stabbed his blooded sword into the ground and knelt on the ground. Sees this, the knight shouts to the captain. The captain is stunned, breathes heavily, and says, "It's unbelievable, did he?" Then he thuds face down on the ground before the golem. The knight, in shock, holds their head, and one of the knights asks how this can be the captain. The golden golem swings its golden magic sword to attack Marquis and others. Marquis quickly created the magic shelter before him and his son, and the golden magic wave hit with the knights standing behind. The knights fall away with the wave and instantly die. Surprisingly, the Marquis asks why they all passed so quickly. Meanwhile, a group of people wearing robes gets there, sees L floating in the air, and thinks they are crowding around again. It's the mages this time. As expected of the Einhart family, who has a force as big as the magic tower, he won't let things end this quickly. But before that, L created the magic eye sphere ball and called Mother, asking her if this magic capture was ready to see the truth. Sylphia extended her hand, responded, and wondered if Ellie must have a good reason to act like this. It must contain something serious that might harm either the Einhart family or the father and her brother. L sent the sphere magic ball to his mother, and she stood before him, ready to receive it. Marquis wondered if he couldn't have foreseen that. Then he turns toward the golem and wonders, but considers the golem's skills unless they have grandmasters, of which there are only 10 on the continent. Then he looks toward L and wonders if it will be impossible to stop him, even if he is a 7th class. If he, Gultan, and the family's mages all work together, they might be able to stop him. Marquis angrily gritted his teeth, thinking they could not stop him if he were to run away. If that happened, it would be the end of this family. What should he do? L stood on the spell circle, closed their eyes, and created the isolation space magic. He made the magic square circle with his hands, and the same square magic block created on Sylphia saw Serena, and kinda got worried and started calling Mother. Sylphia was inside the block, and it was getting blurry from the outside. Kinda worriedly said she couldn't see Sylphia inside the block, carrying the spell balls that L gave her in her hands. She said these are Ellie's memories here. Suddenly, a lot of panels appear before her and start moving, and on that panel, the recorded memories of L when he eavesdrops on Marquis and Gultan's conversation start playing. A letter is lying there, and Gultan says his father said that if he agrees, he will take Sylphia as a mistress. Marquis asks Gultan if it will be okay. She probably knows about that if she becomes the prince's mistress. She might reveal that they kidnapped talented individuals from other countries in secret to brainwash them, and make them a part of their affiliation. Sylphia was surprised to see the true faces of her family members on another panel behind her. The recorded video of her father started playing when he said the prince was involved in it, too. He won't do anything that would harm him. Moreover, Marquis throws the knife toward the target and says he would first reply to the prince, saying he would gladly send Sylphia as his mistress and capture Elle. He will figure out the magic stone developing method from Sylphia in exchange for Elle's life. He will take the information about the magic stone and send Sylphia to the prince, even if it takes force. If she resists, he will seal her powers as a mage and brainwash Elle to make him a mage loyal to the family. Sees this all, Sylphia is shocked. She holds her head and thuds on the ground. On another panel, her brother's voice plays when he responds to Marquis. They can show the prince a corpse that looks similar to Elle and tells him that he died from an unfortunate accident. Marquis appreciates Gultan's plan and compliments him for being fit to be a successor. Sylphia is shocked, holding her head, remembering when she returned to the Einhart family. Her father welcomed her, apologizing for her mistakes and realizing he was terrible. Sylphia remembers this all and wonders if she thought that her father still thought of her as family and that they were still father and daughter. Sylphia started crying, wondering if she was happy she knew the horrors of this family better than anyone. Yes, she brought Ellie there. There is no clue of warmth in this family. They are cruel people. She thinks what happens to her won't matter as long as it is for Ellie. But these people were going to use not only her, but also Ellie by brainwashing him. She thought that she couldn't ever forgive him when he killed her husband. But she couldn't hate him because she believed it was the prince who had ordered him to do that. And that wasn't true. These people don't know love and family. She pressed her lips and clenched her hands on the ground, thinking everything was just a tool for them to grasp power. Those are the authentic selves of those two people she didn't know about. The light from that magic square circle was coming out. Serena and Kaina at one side were worriedly standing while on the other side, Marquis and his son were watching, and Elle, floating in the air, was watching this. Sylphia wonders that no matter how painful or how much she wants to deny it, she needs to accept it. She stood inside, closing her eyes and joining her hands together. The tears from her eyes fell. Suddenly, the square magic circle ended, and Sylphia floating appeared. Serena called Mother Sylphia to land on the ground, thinking she would face reality. Sylphia calls Elle, saying she is not going to run away. Elle float asks her mother, and then he silently gazes at her. Elle worriedly looks at the tears on his mother's face and wonders why she can't hate them despite all that pain because they are family to her. Then he turns angrily, looking toward Marquis and Gultan, and thinks that they too will show them the iron mace of justice. They both angrily clench their fist and stare at Elle. Elle created the iron mace of justice spell the red circle created, and the dark light spread there. A red-eyed eagle came out of that spell circle. Elle raised his hand, and the eagle made a loud voice. Its voice was so loud even the knights and Gultan grabbed their heads. Marquis turned, saying that using sound force to decrease the opponent's morale severely. He had overpowered Gultan, a 7th class with 5th class magic. Moreover, he angrily looks toward Elle and asks, "Well done, Elle, his talent is impressive. It's not too late. Won't he join their family?" Furthermore, with an evil smile, Marquis asks if it would be a loss to have someone as talented as him not come into the family. If he comes to their side, he can make sure that it will be as if what he has done never happened. He will guarantee the safety of his mother and those two girls, too. Then he grinned, asking what he thought. Elle looked toward Marquis and wondered about this unique and strange feeling. Is this the brainwashing spell? Not just his father and other mages, but he now, too. What a nasty older man. Elle responds that he has a question and sees Marquis wonder if the brainwashing isn't working on him. He is a 7th class. Elle asks him how he can do that to his family. Marquis is stunned by the question, laughs, loudly opens his arms, and stretches his hand. He responds that many aristocrats sell out their children for the family's prosperity. It's a very normal thing to do. Elle's eyes widen in surprise, and he wonders if this person is a monster. Marquis asks him where he learned this kind of solid casting magic from 7th class at 17. It's amazing. Elle considers his grandfather a beast and feels that a monster stands before him. He asks him to tell him that secret. Elle closes his eyes, shakes his head, and relaxes. Then, looking toward him, he says he learned it himself. Marquis's mouth opens in surprise, and he asks if he is kidding him. Elle replies, it's true, he learned everything on his own. Marquis's half face and body change into the monster, and he angrily asks. He doesn't want to tell him the truth. Elle replied yes. He hates people like him, the most guys who only see their families as expendable tools. L extends his hand, saying that he will offer him one thing. Marquis asks what L questions him. If he were to leave with his family and spread the truth about his actions, he would be in great trouble. In response, Marquis also questions what he is trying to say. L shows him the golden coin and responds that it contains the contents of the magic capture from earlier. Marquis surprisingly asks what. This truth would threaten the Einhards, but the fact that the prince is involved in the kidnapping and brainwashing is just as bad. If the Empire gets into a fight against the countless families whose children have been kidnapped, even the powerful Bleared Empire might fall. L shows them the coin on which Marquis and Gulton's picture was and says they are too right there if they don't want him to spread this truth everywhere. L angrily points to them and shouts, "Let's fight," without anyone's interruption. He thinks he will only feel better once they have a proper fight. If they can overpower him, he will destroy the coin and disappear. Marquis turned, asking to prepare Gulton. In response, Gulton is surprised and remains silent. Marquis turned and stretched his hand, saying it would be more advantageous if they attacked him simultaneously. Let's do their best. Gulton grins, responding. L closes his eyes, moves his hand near his head, and starts casting the mana. He creates the magic ball, saying they are underestimating him. He throws that blue magic ball toward them, shouting that he will show them despair, and from Marquis' side, he and his son create the dark purple magic ball and throw it toward L. The magic balls collide, and a massive fire explosion occurs there. On the other side of the mansion, Duke Cylon knelt before the Lord, saying he greeted His Majesty. The Lord stood before him and said he was sure he had already heard the news. However, witnesses stated that 7th class magic was used. Cylon responds yes, he has also heard. The Lord asks him if this is a grave matter. If it was someone in the Einhards experimenting, and the explosion resulted from that, hold them responsible. But if there is some trouble within the Marquis' residence, leave them be for as long as he can, then take care of the situation. Cylon asks may he ask why the Lord tells him the Marquis Einhard family has gotten too powerful. This is an excellent opportunity to humble them. Don't he think Cylon's head up and looking toward the Lord responds he agrees, His Majesty. Moreover, Cylon looks toward the Lord and wonders what a scary man he is. He says that a strong enough opposing force needs to exist in an empire. He secretly helped Marquis Einhard come to power, but now that he has gotten even more vital, he is trying to knock him down a few notches as expected of His Majesty, the man who rules over all, as Cylon was lost in his thoughts. The Lord says he will lend him 10 men from the Royal Guard Knight Order and 100 men from the Central Knight Order. He is sure he will do well. He is leaving this in his hands. Cylon, looking toward the Lord, responds yes, His Majesty. As the Lord says, then if he will excuse him, Cylon gets scared. His breath stops there, and he fearfully looks toward the Lord. Meanwhile, Prince Alkaid gets there, asking His Majesty Cylon to get up, and the Lord asks what it is. Prince Alkaid responds that there is a favor he would like to ask. He asks Cylon if he is heading to Marquis Einhard. Cylon replies yes, His Highness, and Alkaid says the Lord, then let him go with him. He will use this opportunity to cut down the Marquis' power. Alkaid thinks, well, that's just something he should do, but his real goal is Sylphir. He will make her his this time. The Lord asks if he thinks he can overpower the Marquis family. Alkaid smiles, saying yes, he will make it happen to gain more experience. The Lord points aside and asks him to permit it so that he can figure out what is happening in the Marquis family. Alkaid responds yes, His Majesty, and after some time, Alkaid and Cylon wear armor and sit on their horses. Alkaid says he is excited to be working with him, Duke Cylon. Cylon responds that since he is joining, he doesn't know if he will need to step up, and Alkaid moves ahead, saying, well, he guessed that's true. With beads of sweat, Cylon looks toward Alkaid, and Alkaid raises his voice, ordering the knight behind him to show their vigor. The knight shouts the slogan, and Cylon turns and looks toward the knight. They leave the mansion and head toward the Marquis Einhard. However, in the Einhard fighting area, L, floating in the air, extends his hands to create the coloring magic circle and sends it toward Marquis. A vast lightning hand emerged from the circle, moving toward Marquis to grab him. Marquis saw the magic hand and grinned, wondering about fast and robust magic. Usually, the opponent's body would have been bisected when he tried to cast a counterattack. But if he uses the Einhard secret, Gulton stands behind, touching his finger to his chin, casts a flame spell circle, then creates the flame storm and throws it toward L. Gulton grins, thinking, how can even 6th class magic be cast in a short time like this? The considerable flame tornado moves toward L. He extends his hand to block Gul'dan's flame storm attack and sees this Marquis activate his lightning arrow, thinking he has blocked Gul'dan's magic. However, it's too early. Marquis shoots the lightning arrows toward L, and L, using magic, gathers all the stones from the ground and makes them float before him. The lightning arrow hits the stones. The rocks absorb the lightning arrows and end. L stretched his hands and created the spell circle before him. The magic aura surrounded his body and turned into the armor around his body. L cast the golden lightning magic and moved the floating stones toward Marquis and his son. Sees the stones coming to them, they shout impossible. L creates the flame storm, and the vast flame tornado casts before them. Sees this, Gul'dan wonders if he only saw the Einhardt's secret flame storm. Just once, but he managed to cast it faster than he could. He had been superior to mages at the same level as him because of his short casting time. He cannot believe this. Gul'dan quickly creates the arrow magic shield and sends it toward the flame storm. Then, he makes the magic shelter over him to protect himself from the flame storm. Suddenly, the magic shelter started cracking and crumbling into pieces. Gul'dan floated in the air. The intense flame wind blew, causing everything to circulate, and he didn't find L there. As Gul'dan looks here and there to find L, suddenly L gets at his back and says in his ear, "Too late." Gul'dan, stunned, turns and shouts, asking what and wonders if he is fast. L extended his hand, and Gul'dan, scared, stood before him looks at him. Gul'dan carried with his flame magic and quickly tried to fly away from there, and L stood behind, cast the magic web, and sent it toward Gul'dan, saying too late. Gul'dan turns to look, and Marquis stands on the ground and sees the magic web. Wonder, a web that restricts movement. Gul'dan can deal with this kind of magic. Gul'dan makes a fist of his hand, points his finger up, and creates a flame tornado. Shouting something like that won't work on him. He sends that magic flame storm toward L. Marquis stood aside from grind, thinking it was a shame that L's web magic was weak to flame-type magic. Gelton keeps shooting his magic flame storm toward L, and from L's side, he creates the magic shelter to dodge his attack. As they both used their magic, they were trying to dodge each other's attack. It was getting difficult for Gul'dan to dodge L's attack. Using all his might, he pressed his lips on the other side. Marquis stood on the golden spell circle and, using his flame magic, created the lightning flame magic and smiled, thinking things were going as he planned. This is the end. Marquis makes the thunder strike magic. The thunder strike, and a flame storm emerge from it downward. Sees that thunder strikes, Gul'dan smiles, and Marquis laughs. The flame strike was coming toward L, and L's mouth opened in surprise. Suddenly, he smiled and cast the lighting magic conductor. Many huge spell circles were created there, and the lightning conductor passed through those spell circles and moved toward the sky. However, the lightning conductor absorbs all the flame storm strikes in itself. The flame storm ends, and Marquis and his son are astonished. Marquis wonders if this cannot be possible. This doesn't make any sense. L smiles, saying not evil. Marquis surprisingly asks what kind of magic this is. L turn, smile, and then laugh, asking why he should tell him. It would be stupid of him to divulge that information to the enemy. Marquis gets furious, and L stands beside the magic conductor and thinks the lightning conductor rod is pretty compelling. L's lightning magic is being absorbed by the lightning conductor rod. Typically, fire-type magic is considered the opposite of water-type magic. Still, it's not a suitable defense method because fire-type magic could end up boiling the water and burning the user. He did much research when he was younger because he was curious about the type of magic. Fire-type magic can be stopped with earth-type magic, water-type magic with botanical magic, and wind-type magic with rocks and steel. Lightning-type magic is tricky rocks, and earth-type magic could stop it. But if the lightning is too intense, it won't do. That is when he was reminded of lightning rods from his past life. It was his first time trying it out, but it perfectly stopped the 7th class lightning magic. This lightning rod is effective. L turns and angrily looks toward Gul'dan, standing on the ground. Gul'dan, stunned and with beads of sweat on his face, looks toward L. L shouts, "This is the end." He raises his hand and activates his bisected body magic. A lightning flame circle appears, and a vast hand emerges from it. Gul'dan sees that magic hand and gets scared. The considerable hand moves toward him, presses him down on the ground, and crushes him. The ground cracked, and Gul'dan's body lay on the ground. The blood spurted out of his body and spilt around. Marquis' mouth opened in surprise, and the beads of sweat appeared on his face. L floated and carried with his magic aura smile, saying now that one's down, it's 1 vs 1. He will probably be bedridden for about a year. Then he points toward Marquis and says he is following. L casts his magic and creates the magic ball around him. After this, he casts a flame arrow. Sees this, Marquis is astonished and quickly raises his hand and makes the magic shelter before him, thinking his magic is no joke. Marquis makes the shield magic, then throws the flame buster magic toward L, and L floats there, moves aside, and dodges his attack. However, L creates the infinity magic arrow, sees this Marquis standing there, and gets scared. With a smiley face and looking toward Marquis, L says that even though they may be small and weak individually, they are strong grandpa when there are enough. Marquis angrily grits his teeth and creates the shield magic before him. L shoots many magic arrows toward him. The arrows hit with the shield, and Marquis, carrying his vast magic shield, was trying very hard to dodge the magic arrow attack. As L's magic was more powerful, and it was getting difficult for Marquis to dodge the magic arrows, he shouted that there was no way he would lose to such inferior magic. The bead of sweat appeared on his face. The magic arrows passed through the shield, and the magic shield broke. Marquis wonders how he can struggle against mere second-class magic when called the continent's most powerful mage. To just some 17-year-old kid at that, he had a scared face and was looking toward L, casting magic and wonders. No one was even 17. The genius magic and tactics make it seem as if he is experienced. L creates the flame magic ball, and Marquis is lost in his thoughts and wonders if it is some P rank by a great mage. Who he is, Marquis extends his hand and creates the vast star magic shield before him. But L, with his magic arrows, breaks that shield, too. Some of the arrows stab Marquis' body, and blood spurts out of his body. Marquis floats in the air and thuds away on the cracked ground. The knights stood there scared, shouted Marquis. One of the knights was astonished and asked Jesus. He couldn't believe it. L landed on the ground, carried his magic, and angrily looked toward Marquis. He said he wouldn't kill him, but would take his magic abilities away. Like he was going to do with his mother. Marquis' body was lying on the ground. L did something with his magic, and the magic abilities from Marquis' body were released, and L shouted that he would break him into pieces. L activated bone break magic to attack Marquis, but suddenly, he heard her mother's voice stop. L gets surprised and stops there, then turns to look, and at his back, Sylphia, with her daughter, stands. Looking toward them, L thinks Serena, Kaina, and Mother Sylphia ask him please, that's enough. Let's stop, Ellie. L silently gazes toward his mother. Sylphia thinks she knows about how talented Ellie is. But to think he is already a 7th class at his age. He has created a golem that everyone believed could not be restored, and it even had the power to bring down a sword master with just one attack. He has become such a powerful mage without her even knowing, and the person he has to fight is his father. She can't forgive that he tried to kill L, but she also can't let L kill her father. Sylphia waved her hand, saying he had taught them a lesson she didn't think they would try anything again. L responded that he can't do that if they let these two go. They are the type of people who come back for revenge. Sylphia says that might be true, but I'm afraid that's not right. He has the magic capture. They won't be allowed to act rashly if they have that. L presses his lips, stares at his grandfather and uncle, and wonders if it's true that he takes away Marquis Einhardt's magical abilities. The entire empire might turn against them. Everyone would be in danger. L thought for a while and responded, okay. After this, he turns and looks toward his mother and says let's leave this disgusting place. With their abilities, they can get a title anywhere they go. Let's go somewhere quiet and live in peace. Sylphia replies okay, let's do that. Moreover, with her sad face and touching L, she says he was right. She was foolish. She wanted to try and make him a marquis, and things ended up like this instead. Power might be necessary in life, but love between a family is more important. L, with a sad face, responds that's right. After this, L is surrounded by his magic and says he would like them two to come. Will they stay with their family? Both Serena and Kaina look toward him. Kaina responds that they will always, and Serena happily joins her hands and says, be together. See this, Sylphia happily smiles. L thanks them, then turns, calling Golden Knight. Golden Knight gets there and bows before L, asking, yes, his liege. L appreciates him for his work and smiles, saying he should name him, and his name is Tana. The Golden Knight thanks him, and L creates the magic circle balls, saying, let's get going. As they were about to leave that place, suddenly someone got there and shouted he couldn't let that happen. L turned to look, and Tana also got activated, and his eyes glowed. L creates the magic shield ball before him and his family, and the person who gets there shoots the flame storm toward them. Tana dodged the attack of the unknown person trying to stop L, while L used magic to protect his family. The attack was fierce, and Tana had some trouble stopping it. The colliding forces grew more robust and built up until they caused an explosion, kicking up some dust. L realized that he was mighty. Meanwhile, Prince Alkaid gets there from behind the person who was attacking and stands beside him and laughs, saying as expected of Duke Clyon, fitting of the royal guard captain. L wonders the prince, then the person next to him is L shouts. Tana activates level 3 mode. Tana activated his level 3 mode, and the seal was undone. Tana raised his hand and effortlessly blocked Duke Clyon's attack, and he even pushed back the Duke and the prince slightly. However, when Clyon noticed that he was being forced into a defensive position, he halted his assault and curiously asked L who he was. Then he impressively compliments that he is fantastic, someone as talented as he should stand on the side of the Empire. But he attacked the Einhart family, an essential family of the Empire akin to a declaration of war against the Bleared Empire. Moreover, he waved his hand, saying he would like to avoid a conflict with him. But as he was about to complete his sentence, Alkaid stood beside him and raised his voice, asking what he was saying, Duke Clyon. Then, he points toward L and raises his voice for the dignity of the Empire. They cannot let traitors like them die quickly. Moreover, with an evil smile, he says to get Sylphir in his hands. L angrily clenches his fist and abuses the prince in his mind. With an angry face, L points toward Alkaid and shouts that he is sorry, Duke Clyon, but he does not intend to join the Empire anyway because he will destroy that idiot. Therefore, L raises his voice and orders Tana to stop Duke Clyon. Tana responds that his liege order protected Tana, extended his hand, cast the spell, and conjured the golden sword. Clyon stood before him, holding his sword, and asked Tana to come. L floated in the air, carrying his magic and telling Alkaid, opponent, let's begin. Then he already held it in once before, but looking at his mother again with eyes like that, he cannot forgive it. Prince Alkaid is astonished, and L moves toward Alkaid. Sylphir stands behind and calls Ellie. L stops there to listen to his mother and Sylphir joining her hands and worriedly asks can't they leave? It's too dangerous to fight the prince. L silently gazes at his mother, and then smiles, saying don't worry. He has plans. It's more harmful to leave him be. The knight stood there watching L floating over them. L created a huge spell circle with his right hand and cast the infinity magic arrow. The knight stood before Prince Alkaid to protect him. L shoots those magic arrows toward the prince, thinking he is a swordsman who's reached the level of a sword master. Unlike ordinary civilians and mages, it has a body that acts like armor. The magic arrows fall and hit the enemies. Duke Clyon, with beads of sweat on his face, shouts this won't do anything. L creates the force hammer with his magic, then, floating in the air, moves toward Prince Alkaid to attack. The prince heads up and looks toward that giant hammer coming toward him. He shouts, and L hits the hammer on the prince and makes him fly in the air. The blood spurts out of Prince Alkaid's body. His knight shouts his highness. The prince thuds away among other knight corpses. L is placing the hammer on his shoulder and thinks that should have given him plenty of internal injuries. External injuries can quickly taken care of using divine magic, but internal injuries will take some time. Duke Clyon sees this and shouts to his highness. He swings his sword because the duel between him and Tana continues. Clyon swings his sword and wonders if he wants to help, but he might be killed if he lets his guard down even slightly. However, L stood aside, asked Tana to stop and stand by in the other realm. Tana stops on his master's order and gives the lightning signal from his eyes. Then, looking toward Clyon, he says other realms stand. Clyon shouts, but he won't let him go. However, the golden magic aura started releasing from Tana's body. As he was vanishing, Duke Clyon launched another attack, and many sword-like magic blades moved toward Tana.